Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the GRAPPL Weekend Show for Thursday, the 19th of December, 2024. I'm Benno.
And I'm JP.
We're back on a Thursday, JP. Popular with some, unpopular with others. Audio listeners are happy, live listeners are mixed. Seems busy in here, though. That's good. Always good to see a few in the chat. Apart from the Kings of the Mountain, who apparently didn't get the live link. I've tried to fix that. I think, yeah, it was a professional effort to lock the Kings. I ticked the tick box that said live patrons and up, so you would think. Apparently, the live patrons are above the Kings of the Mountain now, according to Patreon. But it should be fixed now. If they can't hear me, what can they do? What are they going to say?
If it's not Patreon, it's StreamYard. It's one of the two acting the bastards. Either one.
The wonderful technology that we're slaves to.
Oh, exactly. We are slaves to them, mate. There's no getting away from them. You look at the other options and you're like, yeah, I don't trust you. You're going to go tits up in 2 minutes if I even attempt to do something on that. So you're kind of beholden to the fuckers. But we all moan about it on any podcasters we know who use StreamYard.
Oh, yeah, it's always me or waiting, either in the Discord server or on the Facebook group having a go. So at least I know where he's got me back when I'm kicking off. Davey as well. He's usually he'll usually be a Karen with me in the comments. But yeah, good to be here, JP, on a Thursday at 6 o'clock. Feels a bit odd. Everyone's still having the tea. How'd you feel about this? Feels a bit like is it upset your evening? Is it going to be better? I've not had my tea yet, which feels odd doing a podcast. I don't know. What's the call on it?
It's kind of perfect for me, I won't lie, because the moment I finish this, I've got to put Charlie to bed, but it works out quite nicely for being able to do that. I assumed that everyone else, like, you could say, because does it interfere with the tea? But also, are they on the move on the way back from work? There's, get
us on in the car, come on.
It's 2025. You can listen to us in the car or on the phone. Like, it's not like it has to be on the telly or nothing. You're not right. It's not the 80s. So yeah, I'm kind of really like I like the idea of this nice early evening. You got the rest of your Thursday as well if you want to watch Europa League / Europa Champions League / the darts, which we're not clashing with tonight. That's very much good. Like that's our NFL, mate, is clashing with that. So I'm like kind of thinking we've managed to avoid that.
That's good. Well, I was going to say, like, we're Thursday, partly because we're kind of saying, we may be going forward. It'll be Fridays, but Thursday when there's a Friday night or Saturday pay-per-view or just a pay-per-view at the weekends. Don't know if I count Final Battle. It's not a real pay-per-view. It is tomorrow, but, I mean, would anyone have been crying if we'd recorded tomorrow? But we both got plans, haven't we? It's Christmas time. It's Christmas week. Well, the weekend before Christmas. So, yeah, you're off out with Joe, aren't you? And I've got some other plans with a couple of my mates tomorrow as well. Going the races with my dad on Saturday. I said dad's dad. I've only got one. We're going to hit that races, unless our Peter counts as a dad too. So I got that going on. But very social weekend, JP, is what I'm saying.
That's a Christmas tradition for you, isn't it? The racing is it? Is it Aintree?
And I never do well. And I always ask Andy Ogden for tips, and it's not his fault. I just don't follow them. So this year, maybe I'll just to the letter. Maybe I'll go to Jeff. Maybe Jeff can help me out. Jeff can know what to go with. And I'll stick with it. I'll stick with Andy and Jeff. Or maybe if anybody else has got any tips on it, or maybe they'll be there. There was one year I spotted them at the races.
Forecast with Andy and Jeff tips. Like that, I think you'd go all right with that. Yeah, I would definitely do a bit of that, and then maybe if you're there during the day as well, get some of the darts tips in there as well at the same time.
I was 50-50 to be honest, because I'm still struggling to shake this Birmingham cold that I've had. I managed to strap myself up to do the big fat quiz of the year last night. I am definitely feeling better today. Maybe it's just the weather as well. It's one of those things. But you've got social occasions got to be done on it. I feel like I'm seeing everybody I know over the next week or so, and then I won't see them all again for several years. It's just kind of how these things go.
It is, mate. You'll honestly, the minute you finish work and the minute you're just into the Christmas spirit, he says, the festive season.
I'm just logging back onto the laptop 1 second.
Good man yourself. I love that. If only they knew. Then once you're into the swing of it, it'll be all right. I think really from tomorrow it's going to feel like properly Christmas for me. It's been like sort of like a series of having to do bits and bobs and whatnot throughout like the kind of the day, but it feels like tomorrow is going to be the first day of it. And what's a better way to celebrate Christmas than a Ring of Honor pay-per-view as well? That spells Christmas to me. That's what Jesus died for, mate.
Did you and Joe consider going down to Rev Pro? Should we be previewing that later, as Mikey says here? If it was a couple of weeks earlier, I think we might have even tried to make that the GRAPPL Christmas duo or something like that. But I haven't heard too many are going.
Yeah, the issue
Sure,
is
it's so
it's so late into it. Vicky's out in the evening, so it would have been a non-starter anyway. But it's one of those things where it's just the awkwardness of getting there and back, especially at this time of year when, like you say, you're meeting up with people. It's Christmas drinks. It's that type of stuff, you know. And even with the babies, and I say that in plural, like there's a sense of like yeah. I have to be quite like I have to plan and pick the ones I'd have to do. But we will be previewing it. I will end up watching it. I could see myself because it's up against Fury and Usyk as well.
Oh,
that's all on the
something like that. I'll end up watching that in a pub somewhere, probably after we're back from the races. That always seems to happen to them.
But I think the good thing is they're basically clashing with the undercard, which I don't know. I couldn't really give a shit about. It'll be the main. And the main will hit the ring sometime.
It was a Dundee after
9:30, 10. Yeah, exactly. Plenty of places to go. There's that Spit and Sawdust pub right on the corner near the tube station. That'll be the one. Like that looks like it'll be a fucking like they'll be well into their boxing. It looks like Geezer Central. That place.
You'll be doing some boxing by the end of the night. That's where the York Hall security should be. Maybe just standing outside there for any potential scrap. Well, if anyone's going down, have a great time. Obviously, we'll be podcasting this weekend. That's the other reason we're in the house. We got the Grappies and Crappies coming up on Sunday. Yeah. I'm glad that my Grappies and Crappies and Clappies, damn it, again, I've gotten into your head, JP. I did listen to the midweek news. Don't we're all just going to do it now? We're just going to have to merge with a new GCP podcast. Come on, Andy, we're all one. But yeah, that's going to be on Sunday. And Connor has put on the Discord for everybody to be able to do their votes and let us know what they think as far as the options go. And the big one for me is I've left it open in the comments for people to give us any likely or unlikely scenarios, because usually after 5 hours of recording, when we bust that one out, that either goes well or really terribly. But it's always good to have some ideas for that. So yeah, throw those in there as well if you can.
It's either gone like we're either really knackered or really angry, because it tends to be like,
ourselves up.
Start off with the grappies, get to the crappies, wind ourselves up, get to likely or unlikely, and go, our wrestling's gone to shit. Like, it just,
I mean, it has.
The death of it, 2025, and then we move on.
Gareth was saying to me today, he's trying to think of his what was it, album of the year, and it made me realise, fuck, I'm not sure I've listened to any albums this year. I'm gonna have to triple check if there was anything in me list there. But wrestling wise, not some good choices for the crappies, but the grappies, it might be the Matty Edwards Awards again. Although I will say, but weren't the Matty Edwards Awards, as I mentioned, did do the Big Fat Wrestling Quiz of the year, JP. Spoilers, me and Andrew Thompson did. We won again. Just throwing it out there. Undefeated in my mind, JP. Outside of that rogue Brandon from New Jersey, upsetting things last year. No cheating either. Our working out is available on our Twitter DMs. It's one of them. I'm saying to Matty, it's pub quizzes these days, isn't it? Like everyone's got a phone, everyone can get the answers, so it's the hardest thing for Martin to kind of lay it out and get us to all be upstanding and honest. Nobody's Google history needs checking, I don't think, on this year's one. So quite happy with that.
I was on the train back from the football last night, so I'd gone to watch what was a surprisingly lively Arsenal Palace game. Gabriel Jesus scoring a hat-trick. Keep an eye on that for recent week if he finds his form.
He's in my draft. Yeah, I've got him. Yeah. I couldn't get any of the strikers, so I was like, he plays 20 minutes a week. That's better than not playing any minutes a week. So yeah, he's in my draft.
He looked tasty in the finishing department. But on the train on the way back, I was sat there and I had the phone on, and it was the very end of the Big Fat Quiz of the year. So I was like, I saw it, and what I saw when I first came on was the announcement of you winning it. And I was like, spoilers, Martin, bloody hell. He just went straight into it. And so I need to go back and listen to it. I've listened to the start of it. There's the number 19 is the one that comes to mind with the clip.
Definitely. Matty's disgust at the eye. It's a question related to Hiroshi Tanahashi and how many G1s he's been in a row. The answer may well surprise you. It surprised even me, but that's why I had Andrew carrying me to victory to help me out as well. So yeah, I think Martin clipped that in there and threw it on the Instagram. So give it a listen, play along at home. You don't know the answers to any of the questions, you can still join in from here. So yeah, always a good time every year. Always enjoy it, and hopefully we'll get it back next year. Although I think reading Meltzer and reading the Observer for an entire year has kind of killed Martin this year, so maybe we need to move him over to a Torch subscription or something like that next year to help him out with the questions. But he does an incredible job with those. They're always the unsung hero of that. It's entirely his brainchild. He puts the entire thing together, gets all the questions, the contestants. It's a monster of a job. So send your love to Martin, and yeah, give that a share if you spot it on Blue Sky or Twitter. It was a labour of love and a great time. But yeah, like I said, just the crappies out for us this weekend, and then we will still have a film club this month. More details on that to come. Me and JP will have a little discussion about that later on. But on top of that, Ask Grapple will be out next week as well. We'll be live on the Friday night, the 27th. So yeah, Sunday for the Grappies and Crappies, and then the 27th, the Friday for Ask Grapple. I think I've gotten that right, JP. And then somewhere in between, we haven't nailed the date down yet. There'll be a World's End review, there'll be a Wrestle Kingdom review, and hopefully we'll be able to preview them somewhere, maybe on Ask Grapple. We'll find ways to get through this stacked calendar. But they're the two important dates, aren't they, JP?
They are the important dates. They're always brilliant. I mean, I love Ask Grapple, which we've impromptu have to turn into a preview of all fucking 5 million shows or whatever coming up on there, which does give us the potential for Matty to do more Japan previews. Like if we can get him into doing like previewing the big DDT Ultimate Party show or something like that, then I think it'll just be worth it for that type of stuff. But no, but they're
maybe
going to
need another weekend show. All right, maybe we'll do one the first week of January. We'll figure it out. Maybe we shouldn't give them that power. I realised as well as fucking Raw, as we're going to talk about with the news now, Raw on Netflix launches on January the 6th as well, doesn't it? Every time I hear that fast, January the what? 6th, not 5th. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. That's on the Monday following Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty as well. So yeah, Lord knows what the schedule's going to look like, but hopefully we'll get it all covered. But on that note, JP, we should get into the day's news before we get into Dynamite and the previews. Maybe a little special Christmas preview coming at the end of this show as well. But yeah, first up, less fun matters, unfortunately, as tends to be the case at this tail end of the week. All about Lee Fitting, who's a name that I don't think any of us would necessarily immediately recall if it wasn't plastered all over WWE television the last couple of months. But yeah, WWE's head of media and production as Lee Fitting, and there's been a report into the circumstances regarding him leaving ESPN. I don't know if he was necessarily a name you were more familiar with than me, JP. I vaguely remember the stories at the time when he first came into WWE, but yeah, the New York Times' Athletic has done an investigation into allegations around him. Should be said, there's no physical allegations or anything like that. It's essentially just sounds like a terrible culture, as is the case at most of these types of sports news type places, at least going back to the 90s and 2000s. Apparently they spoke to more than 20 current and former ESPN staff, detailing a long history of Fitting making offensive and crude remarks. It's right up courtesy of our friends at Post Wrestling, all towards women, including many of his co-workers. A spokesperson for Fitting did deny the allegations, or at least some of them, and didn't address others, according to The Athletic. But yeah, there's a long list of incidents. One about joking about bed checks. There was one I had John and Brandon Thurston talk about last night that's detailed here about, saying goddamn when a woman walked in with wearing a skirt he liked. I mean, stop me if that sounds like somebody you might know. And other things about sitting on his lap and, old school office banter that you might have heard at certain points in your life, that certainly have no place in the world in 2024 or even in the years that these allegations are. Like I say, all of the women contained have kept anonymity, obviously, because a lot of them still working in that industry, and that just tells you what happens. And with powerful men like him and people willing to come forward to a point, but it's under cloak of anonymity. And yeah, it's an allegation and a series of allegations that I think there was some awareness of JP at the time he was hired by WWE, but this is certainly the most detailed report we've had into it, and thus far no real response from WWE.
See, that's I mean, as a piece of investigative journalism, it's great because it fills in a lot of details necessarily around him. I think it was the kind of story that if you were like, say, into college football and into college game day, you would have noticed, because he would have been like obviously he was like a big part of it. And you've got to remember that's a monolith of a TV show for ESPN. That's the one that McAfee is on. It's college football is kind of king. Right. In so much when it comes to sport. So I think if we'd been more into that, we may well have noticed them when he came across, because obviously you're thinking of the people who have been like the stories around WWE at that point in time. This does predate Janelle Grant, but there were still stories and there were still the aspects of talking about the culture of the place as well. And I think I'll say it got lost in the shuffle, but it wasn't perhaps pushed as far in it because it was like that kind of like it was whispers, it was rumors.
Right.
Now you realize with this that this story has now come out. You go, oh, well, if they were wanting to move away from the boys culture at in WWE, well, they've picked someone who comes very much from the boys culture of ESPN, which has been like, I mean, the stories about ESPN, it sounds awful. It sounds incredibly familiar to WWE. And it makes you wonder what else is out there as well. I think one of the women, they said they like she'd be making notes, and Lee Fitting was what's that? And he go, oh, it's for my book. And it would immediately kind of like shut him up.
Right.
There's no way they didn't know about this.
Yeah.
You were talking about someone who was hired as head of media and production, effectively as a replacement for Kevin Dunn. Think of the
Nick Khan hire as well.
A Nick Khan hire. Yeah. And think of the importance that Kevin Dunn had within that company. Think of the power he had within that company. And this is the guy you get to bring in. So you're going to do a thorough check. We forget this. WWE is a multi-billion-dollar corporation, part of an even larger monolith of a corporation in TKO. So there's no way you hire people like that and you can claim that you didn't know about this or it was an NDA. It's like, no, this is very much like reflective, I think, of corporate culture. And the fact that push comes to shove, and we're going to get into it perhaps even with another story as well, that when it happens, they don't give a shit. They're just looking at it and they're just thinking, nah,
ones
okay.
And zeros,
yeah, it's ones and zeros. Is this guy going to be able to do a professional job with their production, which no doubt he can do, but they don't care. That's really where I got from this is a lot of the talk that WWE will give is just corporate doublespeak in order to kind of, hire these people.
And to that point, obviously the Janelle Grant side of it released a statement on this before WWE. This is Kendra Barker for Lamy, spokesperson for Janelle Grant, has just said, how can WWE claim they are committed to improving the company's culture at the same time as hiring this man, like you said earlier in that year. The allegations came forward. He was accused of sexual misconduct and workplace harassment in his previous role. The allegations came during a time ESPN are extremely concerning, and revelations like this are why Janelle Grant's lawyers sent a letter to WWE and Endeavour urging them to release all current and former employees from their NDA. Same old boys club is the quote in there as well. And yeah, I'm with you in that, like, obviously there's formal ways that WWE could have found this information out, but you can't tell me that, like, Nick Khan, who's like, we've got a story later on where we're talking about, Variety's biggest deal makers, and he's listed in that because he is so connected and he is so involved in this universe. Like, of course he knew. About these allegations, and of course, it was something they presumably considered at the time. And the heat wasn't on in the Vince McMahon case, obviously, like it is today, and just made the decision to bring him in regardless. And I think my question is how long he sticks around. I wonder whether they're just going to cut ties now. Say, if he was just some nameless person who wasn't even, he didn't have his name at the end of every SmackDown and Raw, reminding you that he works there. They, dare I say it, might have even gotten away with it or might not have the pressure. But every time that name appears on screen, it's going to remind people of this story now. And I think they might just take the easy way out, to be honest.
I think they will do. I think they've got their out with this. They'll probably claim plausible deniability, which is bullshit, but they'll claim it and they'll probably manage to find their way out of it. But yeah, it is so it's damning on them for this is the like one of the first big appointments they made, if not the big appointment they made in a Nick Khan Triple H era. And this is the story that comes out, and it's from the Athletic, so you can't say this isn't a credible media source. Effectively, it's the New York Times. Like, this is, and there's over 20 people who are commenting on the story, so it's not a case of he said, she said. This is like multiple saying that he was like this within the culture of the company as well. It's bloody awful, like it really is, and but also simultaneously completely unsurprising.
Absolutely. And a somewhat related story. Again, I suppose related in subject matter. AEW find themselves in the news for another matter like that.
They are accused of NDA violation and mishandling a settlement by Jamie Horn, who is the former partner of BJ Whitmer, who was a producer from the very start of AEW as well. She has gone public with allegations of mistreatment by the AEW legal team, claimed that the AEW general counsel, Chris Peck, who replaced Megan Perek, of breaching a non-disclosure agreement that she signed in 2023, that he shared details of the communications between her and AEW with attorneys for Whitmer as well, who's a defendant in a criminal trial. He's charged with this first-degree strangulation, second-degree burglary against Horn. She's got a GoFundMe at the moment because she is effectively homeless, 3 children, at risk of losing her children due to a Child Protective Services investigation because of the fact she's homeless in there as well. So it feels like she's like, this is what she's had to do in order to get this out there at the minute as well. She spoke, that she said that in the months afterwards, that AEW had originally provided her with therapy, a home security system, security detail for the hearing as well, conversations about policy changes, about domestic violence policy and stuff like that. That was under Mega Perek.
Yeah.
Then when this guy Chris Peck comes in, this just like he asked her to share all of the details of the case with her as well, which is kind of re-traumatizing, asking someone to go through what sounds like a horrific series of events that she had to go through with Whitmer there as well, but having to go through this. She was asked by Peck if there's a final amount that could be paid to make this go away as well. So yeah, this is fucking awful on here as well, and it makes them look awful.
It does, yeah, and obviously, Jamie Horn's statements out there and statements on Twitter, piecing those together and piecing together, this fundraiser, this GoFundMe, which it's good to see people are supporting, and people within the business are supporting. So a couple of names on, I think Miro was one, and a couple of others willing to put money for. She's obviously gone through something horrendously, traumatic with BJ Whitmer. Like the allegations around BJ Whitmer essentially amount to, he broke into a house, didn't he? Waited for her to come home and then strangled her to try and get her to stay quiet. And obviously, that is something that has clearly affected her life and her kids' lives gigantically. And it sounds like, and this is kind of maybe AEW summed up backstage, like, again, this is just my interpretation of it, that Mega is like, she's very much, I don't know, has been like a comfort blanket for her, and has, maybe, been gone above and beyond as far as providing support, and even informally, post working in that position in AEW, it sounds like, reading between the lines, has been a big support to it and gets nothing but praise. However, for whatever reason, AEW have replaced Mega with this Chris Peck as their new general counsel, and his approach has been quite the opposite, in that it's been very much zeros and ones, and very much treating this like it's a legal matter. And some, might argue, from a business point of view, that's how businesses, like we just said with WWE, handle, such matters. But clearly, yeah, his handling of it has not been the best either, in that, I think, again, reading between the lines, because there's a lot to put together here, the case against BJ Whitmer fell apart, possibly because that Jamie Horn hadn't fully, I think the judge wasn't happy that she'd not fully declared that she had this financial understanding with AEW, had not declared the correct amount. And her allegation is that Chris Peck, acting either on behalf of AEW or on his own, has provided that information to the BJ Whitmer side or to the court, and that's what caused the case to fall apart. And I think she's trying to, in explaining all those various complicated details, essentially has ended up homeless in a car and struggling with the kids as well and needs help. So I think that's the headline there, and that this, the poor woman is in an awful position and needs all the help that she can get. But like you said, doesn't paint the best picture for AEW. It's not good PR, is it? And it's not. Doesn't sound like, whether you think we were too soft at the start or too hard at the end. There has maybe been a consistent response from AEW, and yeah, it's obviously resulted in this obviously terrible PR too.
Yeah, exactly, and just their attitude towards the end is something that makes you often worry about AEW where it's a case of let's just tie things up in
Mm.
NDAs and how much can we give you to make things go
That's
away.
where the two stories are related, isn't it? NDAs, absolutely.
Yeah,
Mm.
it is, and it's not done for any kind of it's done to make stories go away, and that's what it is. It's all about avoiding that bad PR, which AEW can ill afford. Like one of the things that they were able to position them about from the very inception of the company is they weren't WWE. They were going to offer all of these things. They were going to treat their employees well. They were going to go into it with a sense of like kind of like a real sort of like very moral stance. That's like gone out the window. Effectively, when push comes to shove, like all corporations and businesses, what do they end up doing? They end up just going, nah, we're just gonna try and pay people off and make it go away, or stitch them up in this case.
Yeah, it's hard to say whether the opposite approach was the right way to do it either. You know, it sounds like, Mega was saying a lot of things that about AEW were going to use it to, do, charity events and to, push awareness of domestic violence and stuff like that. I don't know how much of that conversation was part of her job either. So, yeah, it's hard to say without knowing the full details, but not a pretty picture regardless there. But they're the two very serious stories, and obviously if we get more, I'm sure we'll talk it on forthcoming shows, JP. But so as we can move on from there into more in-ring matters, and I'll start with JP. Did you happen to watch any of the Raw Netflix kickoff that strangely occurred on the 18th of December, even though the show's not launched until the 6th of December? It was a weird thing.
I've seen one tiny clip, which was during a face-to-face between Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley. Some kid shouts out, "I love you, Rhea," and she just goes, "I love you too, small child," which was, and then Liv Morgan started. That was funny. I thought that was very good. But yeah, very early for the hype for this, but it's WWE, so
Christmas in
surprise.
Everyone,
yeah,
the calendars of both companies, as we're going to get into later, get a little bit complicated from here on out. But I did watch it. Like, the main stories coming out of it are that I speculated on Spotlight that Liv and Rhea would be a WrestleMania match. It's going to be a Netflix match. We also had, and I guess we've already had the confirmation of it, that it will be tribal combat between Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns. We'll have to find a way to record with Matty to talk that, because apparently an extra news story that's dropped in the ether today is that this comes from WrestleVotes, and I'm not sure on WrestleVotes track record the best of times, although they can be correct too. Apparently they're thinking of putting a belt together for that. I feel like the Ula Fala, the lovely red necklace is enough to fight over. JP, what do they need need a belt for? But that's your big match. Although I will say, on this kickoff for a show that's not happening for a few weeks, they did present Seth Rollins and CM Punk as if it was the main event. Michael Cole did use those words in introducing them. I don't know whether that's necessarily going to be the case. I do feel like even I would agree Roman versus Solo would probably be your main event there. But yeah, they were kind of the most newsworthy bits. Also, Kevin Owens on the wind up talking about movesets, which was a story I left off Spotlight this week, but is starting to become more of a thing. CM Punk taking clearly non-vague shots at Hangman Page using the term moveset on his Twitter, and now Kevin Owens firing back at CM Punk, which Punk won't have liked one bit. He already looks like he doesn't like working with Seth Rollins in the first place. Like, that headbutt looked like a shoot when he went at Seth Rollins. He looks like a man exhausted with working with fucking children, as I imagine he would say. Yeah, and I don't think Kevin Owens adding that to the mix is it might be good for us. I might get some news stories out of it. Could get a film that down before WrestleMania, maybe.
Would you not? I think that's a great one for likely unlikely for the grappies and crappies.
It'll be one of them. It'll be Seth, it'll be Owens, it'll be Sammy, it'll be one of like the Colt Cabana adjacent, Hangman Page adjacent people. Like, you can tell he's not happy. Like, I'm not a mind reader, but I don't think he's working in a lot of these Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins just constantly brings up like who's the bootlicker now stuff, because Punk is, and he literally said it, didn't he? Because he reads everything, as he obviously does on Twitter, and he called himself Corporate Man Punk as he stands there in a suit shilling the Netflix debut. And Rollins is, although he keeps going back to that talking point, kind of arguably right, that you are, who's the bootlicker now, and going back at Punk. You can tell he hates it, and he's holding it together because his boss is slightly off camera there and trying to continue to be this professional CM Punk. But don't know. The children are on the wind up is all I'll say.
They are, aren't they? And they've got a few months until it's like, how do we make him sabotage a potential WrestleMania main event? Like, how do we get him to fuck this off? So we end up having to change things around just to piss him off for shits and giggles, which isn't like, I mean, you know, we saw this in AEW. Like, I mean, that was part of the story with Ryan Nemeth, of course, wasn't it? It was about like get a reaction from him. Why? Because he can be gotten to in the easiest possible way, and he's that kind of a lad. I mean, my only bigger point, I suppose, and my bigger thought, and when looking at this Netflix card is, I get the reasons for stacking it. I get the reasons for, and we're going to probably talk more about this, I imagine, even on our Scrapple as well. But do you feel that they should be spreading out a couple of like having 2 big matches? I get, but spreading stuff out over the following weeks. Because we've seen this. This is a thing that Vince would fall into. He'd go very, very heavy on the first couple of weeks, and then they'd burn through stuff, and then it'd become like a regulation show. Is there not the danger of them doing that? Because
AEW have had that problem too, haven't they? And that, like, you know, the first Dynamite is always pointed to by the grifters as, you know, they did 1.5 million or whatever it was. Where'd all those people go? And it's like, it is just the nature of, like, you know, debuting a show on television. It happened with, obviously, Rampage and Punk as well. Although I think, you know, at the time, and I think we were right to say it, we were disappointed AEW didn't do more with that Rampage card, and especially remember the Dynamite afterwards. As opposed to your point, they didn't stack that either. So I get your point, but I guess maybe the thought is, it's the shop window time, isn't it? That is categorically going to be when the most people watch. Therefore, you put your absolute best foot forward. But yeah, maybe they could afford to, you know, let a couple of things slip. But, you know, it's one of them. I mean, what are we really getting? Rhea and Liv, which I did think was a WrestleMania match, might still be one. Punk and Seth feels like we're just getting it out the way so the Punk can do something he's actually interested in. That's happening there. And yeah, maybe just horses for courses, really. You know, Roman and Solo. That's another one where get that out the way so that Roman can work an actual good wrestler who can promo, talk, wrestle, and be a main eventer at some point, and you know, do that at WrestleMania instead. So they're all kind of B+ programs. There's just a few of them, I guess, to your point. So maybe one could be a Saturday night's main event. You know, perhaps coming up, you know, the week before the Rumble, that type of thing.
That's the other thing as well. I mean, and I know the rating for Saturday night's main event wasn't exactly something that was. I didn't think it was spectacular. It wasn't spectacular. I didn't think it was necessarily bad. It was kind of what I expected it to be. Network TV does not carry the cachet that it used to do, but it's still a shop window, I should say, to show like what kind of like this is what the current product's like. It's better than what it was. Why don't you come in and have a look on Netflix? But Netflix are paying them so much money that they're into this, and it's just going to slightly affect the booking. That there is going to be a degree of pressure, I think, for the first few months of going. Actually, we need something good each week. Something substantial has to be on it, and you can't just leave it for the PLEs and have. Well, we've got PLE here. We've only got 5 matches on it, so then we can push stuff across. Because that's been part of, I think, their key to their success is that every card has had something where you've gone, actually, I want to see that. Even if you don't agree with everything necessarily on the card, there's always been 1 or 2 things. That now is going to happen in a much quicker rotation. So it's going to rely on like the booking being kind of like they need to be on it.
I said this yesterday, probably a bigger discussion for a spotlight in future, but like on the Big Fat Quiz of the Year, just thinking about it, like, there are going to be people out there who, you know, we joke about it, like, who watches wrestling? Where do all these quarter hours come from? These numbers that we spend so much time discussing, it's the people who've still got cable, isn't it? It's the people who still hold on and watch television as it's broadcast on TV, as we maybe will be talking about later. You might actually be leaving some of those people behind, you know, when you move over to Netflix. Like, there's going to be most people have got Netflix. Not everybody has Netflix. So I don't have Netflix. You know, most people do. But like, when I say that, I suppose I'm just thinking of the people who are directly in front of me, that this part of the US, you know, audience that are out there that still watch, you know, regular TV, and obviously we've got it over here as well, aren't necessarily going to be served by Raw anymore, are they? But, and yeah, to Andy's point, I guess, to get to that, like, yeah, maybe there's, you know, something about the audience that will be watching on Netflix. They will be cherry pickers, and yeah, you know, he's 3 hour runtime, as Andy rightly says here, and you're not watching it live. Maybe you do skip through and just see the start and end. So maybe actually there's almost an argument there to your point there to maybe not stack them too much, but Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and it's obviously not the end. JP is we thought we had the last YouTube show in the UK, but apparently SmackDown, because of this weirdness between the two deals, on January the 3rd, again on that fucking busy weekend right before Netflix is going to be airing on YouTube in the UK, Canada, and many more countries. I won't play the clip again, but get used to that music again, folks. It's going to be playing. But yeah, that's interesting. Getting a SmackDown on YouTube. Get ready to definitely. I've learned my lesson. Don't watch that live. Watch it the morning after and skip ahead to Andy's point.
And I think this is a good thing in the main. If like me, you're not going to watch it live, no intention of watching it live, skipping through it on YouTube, I think that's good. I mean, Meltzer, when he described it, he said it was just like a weird anomaly, isn't it, with where some of the contracts start and end for like the UK and Canada and a couple of other places in there as well. I don't think that's bad. They'll be plugging Netflix all over that. They're not going to be like they'll be able to get away with it. It's just going to be that volume of advertising again, even though it's on USA and it's not network TV, and even like you've said before, like even with Saturday Night's Main Event was excessive even by American standards for this stuff, that it's still like the idea of using YouTube in which to distribute your show, which would have been I know something that people feared in the past because of the rights fee stuff. I think in isolated cases for WWE, I think it's a good thing. I think for Saturday Night's Main Event, I think it worked. I think it'll work again for this particular edition of SmackDown as well. And it's happening so early in the year that I think it's still going to be a case of people, well, they're not going to be at work, are they? So it fits in nicely with like that Christmas holiday season. So they're going to be more predisposed to being able to watch it and just go onto YouTube and go, oh, episode of SmackDown's on here. It's a nice little selling point.
Yeah. And I feel like as a YouTube Premium user, I should get the adverts chopped out when I watch it the next morning. Unlike my IPTV have started doing that, JP, with Dynamite and Rampage. I choose to watch it there now rather than Triller, because I don't have to listen to the fucking music over and over again. They just leave in the picture-in-picture ones. The rest of them are a cut. Need more of that for us premium subscribers, I reckon. But there we go. That's the future with SmackDown. What else we got on WWE?
Well, we're talking the world of telly. NXT. Third largest audience since moving to CW. December 17th from Lowell, Massachusetts, that inexplicable hotbed of professional wrestling. 708,000, 0.16 in the old, up 4% this week. It was 680 the week before there as well. Largest number since October 8th. That was the second episode, and that had Randy Orton and Javon Evans. So you've got the idea here is that core demo, well, it dropped ever so slightly in there, like 8% down on there as well. And apparently that was females. It was up against the NBA Cup final, which seems like they've just managed to fucking steal that from UK sports. But yeah, and it was up against the North Carolina Florida game as well. So again, CW will be absolutely cock a hoop at this, like thinking about how great this is as well. I know they had like a screwy finish because it involved Carlisle's own Eddie Thorpe in there against in there against
is it Eddie Stobart who died this week? I'm pretty sure
it is Eddie Stobart. 95.
Not Eddie Thorpe.
Cracking knock. You'd be annoyed you haven't reached three figures though, wouldn't you? Caught and bowled by old age. So yeah, he it was Eddie Stobart there, which is always all I ever think about when I see like Eddie as a name. I don't think about Eddie Edwards though, but yeah, for them, I have to say it's a great rating for them. There's taped editions they've got for Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, and then it's New Year's Eve on January 7th, where for the next two editions they're not going to be doing great ratings because of the dates they happen to fall on. But still, CW are going to be very, very happy. WWE are probably a little bit annoyed they didn't get more money for NXT, but it shows you, like, I mean, as times as bad, like swathes of NXT can be, there is an audience for it, and it is succeeding in a way that I didn't see this ever taking place. And they're able to just occasionally go outside of the performance center and just go to a few other places without being overly excessive about it. So Yeah,
NXT for me, it's always a business story. It's never like, I never want to actually like try and assess the quality of what's happening, because it's just like watching wrestling in a strange language from a strange place where people just constantly revisit the whims of Shawn Michaels and his career. Apparently, Ethan Page lost his smile this week, but you can't argue it's doing numbers, or at least contextually doing better numbers than it ever has. And that segment particularly did pretty well too. 1849, they're doing better as well. So there's an experiment, it's working, and it could be a good one for likely unlikely coming up. I just feel like maybe Sean needs a few months off before he recycles too many of those ideas. Double pin this week, like Sean and Trips on that Raw in 2003. It's like living in the fever dream of Shawn Michaels, isn't it? From the mid 2000s. That's what NXT is these days.
We're seeing Punk's open, so he can take over that, bring all that.
He's next up
to the table. And one particular side of the roster, knowing what he's like as well. So yeah, it's doing all right at the minute. Someone else who's doing all right, and I did mention this in the news dump, and in fact it took up the entire
great time finally
preview. My God, like, you can't argue with this. Cody Rhodes is going to read a bedtime story on New Year's Day on CBBS. He's reading Gigantic by Rob Biddulph. Just to give you an idea of what that's about as a book.
You read that to the kids? I
haven't, no. I'm tempted to on the back of this. I would have to say as well, Roman Reigns hasn't had this as well in the meantime. There's some of the other folks who you have.
Just seeing how far down the BBC story Cody is. Idris Elba got the headline. Is Cody last? I think Cody's last.
He's got New Year's Day, mate.
Oh, that's fine.
He's got New Year's Day. Like, logical. I mean, yeah, he's not Kylie Minogue or James Norton, who was in what was it? He was in Happy Valley in there as well. Idris Elba. Yeah, when Tom Hardy.
Hey, they didn't get a picture. I go.
Who's that?
Like Cody. They didn't get a picture, Mel and yeah.
You like, there are really famous people who do it. It is incredible, like, that they managed to kind of like do this well. But when Tom Hardy was on it, it did enormous ratings because of the mums, for obvious reasons. But yeah, Andy says it there completely right. Fuck the bloodline necklace. We need a battle for that Jackanory book. I would say so as well. This is for just in terms of just putting a name out there and seeing if it sticks. This is the kind of stuff that is actually quite good. I'm just intrigued to see how he reads it and how he delivers it. Does he do it like a pro wrestling promo? Does he do it like I do, where I have to do a series of voices and give all of the characters accents as well? Just to see how many of them sound like my dad.
Proper dad stuff, though.
Oh yeah, it is. You have to do that. And there's like, I mean, I butcher some local accents. I'll save it for this one on there. But it is like, it's a surprisingly big deal. Like people who want to do that. Justin Fletcher, by the way, Mr. Tumble. Does that mean anything to you?
No, Mr. Tumble maybe. I don't know.
He's on something called Something Special with his big spotty bag. He's on there. I mean, if you looked at him, you might think this bloke's suspect, but he's been around there for a long time. So it might like to make you think that he very much passes the DBS update service check. So, yeah, I think it's
amazing.
A big story. I
it
will
is.
spare you the good night song as well.
He's not come out publicly with it. Matty's been privately trying to poo-poo this story. Is like, oh, you'll go to an open of an envelope, won't he, Cody? It's like, this was genuinely big. Like, he's the WWE champion getting called up by BBC to do the CBB's bedtime story. People are going to know the name Cody Rhodes, you know? I imagine he'll have that WWE belt with him on screen. It's big stuff.
Has he done the predictions game with Chris Sutton, who took over from Mark Lawrence? That would be the thing you'd expect him to be.
They were
just
always
5 minutes and him talking about he's him just going Everton Wolves. Robbie Brooks,
the Blackburn Rovers,
Everton.
like Shawn Michaels once said.
Oh yeah, oh my God, Blackburn. What a fucking side for him to support there, isn't it? Jesus Christ.
No follow-up questions. Don't ask him who plays for them or anything like that. That's all you know. All you need. No, it's a rite of passage. It's a really cool thing. Made up for our Cody to get such an important thing. And like I say, to get his photo on the website as well. I feel like that's That's big time too. But outside of that weird little story, couple of other non-WWE stories to get through. Firstly, what the fuck is going on at TNA? Getting different takes depending on the news outlet that you choose to read. But yeah, PW Insider have been confirming some departures. Jay Chung being one, Trent Seven being another. Apparently, Kushida is going to be focusing on New Japan going forward, but left TNA on good terms. There's people like Josh Alexander who are expected to be leaving, obviously, when his contract expires in February. But it's, he apparently is going to look at what's available, but that's not a guarantee. And obviously, Jordan Grace's his contract is coming due soon. Clearly, something is happening there. There's been mixed reports as to whether talent have been asked to take pay cuts, which is the reason apparently Rhino has gotten off again from TNA. I don't know. It's one of them, isn't it? Smoke without fire, JP. Signs aren't good as far as that. It's one of them, though. They're never going out of business. Of course, they're going to be around forever. But clearly, there's some cost cutting going on, maybe with this new bloke in charge of Anthem. And clearly, anybody whose contract is coming due, or even not, it appears from some of the talent they've asked, should probably be looking over the shoulder, or maybe looking in the wonderful world of MLW or NWA or one of the other equivalent places where they might be able to get some work. Because, signs aren't good.
I don't know. I think when you lose Detroit Terry, that always worries me. So Rhino,
he's always back, though, isn't he? He'll make a big return in a couple of years. Always back.
He'll do a spear on NXT, and then he'll end up back there soon enough. It's such a weird one because we've got this completely almost contradicts the expansion plans. Running the UBS Arena in Long Island, is at the Galen Center in Los Angeles as well, and those being kind of like big deals on the back of, when you consider how their year has been in terms of just sheer ticket sales, it's been good, which you have
big
very
houses.
Big houses. Like, I know the tickets aren't always the most expensive, but it always felt like it was a product on the up. And there is always going to be a certain degree of churn in TNA. People are going to be there on limited date contracts. They're going to be there short-term deals, maybe even just like a year, and they're going to move on. So I get that. Some of them people they could lose, you'd be like, yeah, fine. Like, I mean, I would always say someone like a PCO could go because I imagine he's on a big wedge, but also he does shift a fair few tickets when they do Montreal and Canada,
that's probably the reason.
So he does seem to.
It's still mad, by the way, that I'm doing In Your House 1995 rewatches, and there he is wrestling, and then you put TNA highlights on YouTube, and there he is wrestling. It's so bizarre.
30 years between them, mate. That's shocking behavior for that.
It's the type of wrestling he's doing. It's more alarming than seeing Billy Gunn or Jeff Jarrett,
Yeah, it's then also which people aren't leaving at the minute, because Joe Hendry isn't going to be there for that much longer. You would imagine, even if they put the belt on him, there's a point when his contract's up that WWE will have him in NXT, because NXT looks like it's a bit more of obviously of a successful product. Trent Seven, going through like in kind of isolated cases like Trent Seven, I think that's someone you just bring in on a short-term deal, but there are other British wrestlers you can bring in and out and mix into there as well. Jay Chung leaving just suggests to me that Josh Alexander's leaving. I always imagined that he worked well because as a family unit, it meant these are the dates they're going to be away. These are the dates they're going to be able to be at home, so they can arrange their family, like childcare, boring things like that around that type of stuff. But now, like her going suggests, he is off, because there had been stories about that as well. And the pay cut side of it is more the kind of worry. But then at times, have they overpaid for people in order to try and keep them? Like, it's never a great look, though. If it's pay cuts, it just doesn't seem like the kind of place where you want to stay.
It just feels like, they're maybe trying to settle some books or just even some things out. Again, I don't think they're going out of business anytime soon. They're never going to go out of business. We'll just need to accept it with TNA. All of these things come and go, and they still survive. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, from the wrestler point of view, it would make you think twice, wouldn't it, about working there going forward. But again, one to monitor going forward.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I don't know why I included this, because it was a fucking slow news day. But
and finally,
this guy, like, I don't know if you want to play the video for this, because I pissed myself laughing.
Will they try and take us down? Like, apparently, we got a weird copyright claim this week from Sony because we were playing the Raw Netflix logo reveal on behalf of NBC. So we've annoyed, or was it USA? We've annoyed all of the copywriters this week, but we'll try. So this is Stephen Flo.
Stephen Flo spoofing Pearl Jam.
It's only his second appearance.
and he uses they change the sitting when they're singing like even flow, like it's Stephen Flow is what they sing with his finisher, the Pearl Slam. And yeah, it looks like shit Raven stuff on here. And like the many iterations of the Canes that do the indie scenes, whether it's Cocaine or Gain or whoever it is, like I'll always have
a news story on Fightful. What's going on?
I don't know. Slow news week, mate. That's what it is. It's even that, or I could bang on about Ted DiBiase Jr. having his like a court date announced on there.
Independent wrestler Stephen Flow has sparked a lot of buzz recently. Has he? Like, has he? Maybe he will now. I don't know. Did he pay Fightful for this story to be put on?
Fair play to him though. Like the fact that the fans are singing Stephen Flow, you just think, okay, this will work. Then we'll finally get around to seeing him wrestle. And then we'll realise he's awful, and that this needs to go away as well. He looks incredibly like Bobby Richards, doesn't he, as well?
Sorry, I played really loud. Apologies for the audio listeners if you got that there. Yeah, there you go. It's Christmas. Why not post such stories? You should have saved it for Christmas Day. Could have been a big reveal, but there you go. Stephen Flow coming to TNT or indie near you sometime soon to work Blue Cane. But on that note, moving on from the other stuff, we do need to talk some AEW. Kind of talk the big. Very serious news story at the top. We've got some other AEW news stories to get into as well, JP. But first up, AEW Dynamite Holiday Bash, which I did in fact stay up live for last night. That's a Thursday spotlight weekend show for you, which is thankful to anybody in the live chat who managed to squeeze Dynamite in. If you haven't, or you're avoiding spoilers for whatever reason, to be fair, there's not much to spoil. Maybe skip along now and use the timestamps. But stayed up live for Dynamite last night, JP, and I very much enjoyed it. Had a really good time watching Dynamite. I don't know if there was necessarily much newsworthy coming out of it, but a couple of matches I very much liked, a couple of angles I liked, a couple of angles I hated. Actually, it feels a bit like Collision at the weekend, and otherwise some notable stuff up and down the show. I would say it was a very watchable Dynamite last night, JP, and again I feel like it was carried in a lot of ways by the Continental Classic, although like again with Collision at the weekend, I think the women's division had a good night too. What did you make of Dynamite this week?
In the main, there was stuff on this that I like. I mean, with the Ospreay Darby Allin match, which I thought was like just a cracking piece of like a really great, entertaining TV match. The kind of thing you want to put out there in order to get viewers can build up to some really great stuff on a pay. It made me want to see them with like no time limit. What would they do on a pay-per-view? And you just think, actually, you've got something here between these two, even because just the dynamic and everything else there. I thought the second half of the show was better than the first half because the first half had Trevor and Adam Cole and then JF. And
he's just Trevor now, is he? That might be the name of the show, Trevor.
I was thinking that. I was thinking, what name would we go for the show for this?
Or Stephen Flow, one of the other. That's got to be one of the two now.
But there was, in the main, like I looked at some of the actual wrestling for this, and I thought, man, this is like I've liked this. Like I like the main event. Even I thought the main event was kind of fine for what it was for that kind of like trios match, although the dynamic is kind of weird on it. But again, the Continental Classic does the kind of heavy lifting in there as well. We're getting to the business end of that before World's End, so I'm glad that we're at that stage. And God forbid, Benno, they promoted Kenny Omega returning to AEW.
They listened to the weekend show last week is what they did, and then listened to Spotlight and we're like, we're gonna make that show out of date. Let's sort it, which tends to be what happens when we do a later Spotlight. To be fair, that answers our criticism, and I think we did park everything we said last week on the weekend show with, but they've still got time. It's one of them. I'm glad they've done it, and it was the right thing to do, but it does make you think. Like, because a lot of the reason people were saying they wouldn't have done it so far was because they didn't want to muddy the World's End build. But if they're doing that anyway, why didn't they tell us 2 weeks ago? It just makes you think that maybe it was just incompetence more than anything than a real plan. But they got to the right result in the end, so I'll take it. And it felt important, and it got that reaction that we've been talking about for 2 weeks that you want that AEW crowd to have, that buzz of excitement. Kenny Omega is coming back. They managed to bottle that a little bit, and they didn't. It wasn't so subtle. World's End tease, because they focus right on the World's End logo at the end of that video as well. So yeah, keep that going, make it important. Kenny Omega run. I think everybody's on board with wanting that now. I love that. And yeah, for me, like, yeah, that obvious highlight of the show was Ospreay Darby. Like, that's the AEW. I think most of us, or at least who've got the taste to want to watch AEW, want. I don't think they could have gone out there, and they shouldn't have gone out there and had any other match than this. It was daft. It was, fast paced. There were daft bumps, like that Darby bump to the apron. There's not many bumps that Darby does that, as great as they are, you're always thinking about, because he does so many of them. That's one that's going to stick with me. The way he landed on the edge of that apron and the sound it made. Like, I wasn't necessarily falling asleep on the couch watching this last night, but it was getting a bit late, and that woke me up. That was fucking gnarly. And like I say, it was Darby being Darby, but it was the back and forth. You could tell, Ospreay had sat down with Darby and knows him well enough and wants to fit in whatever wild shit Darby wants to do. And like, there was that sequence where it was Ospreay off the top missing into the what's the elbow he calls it, the off with his head thing,
the hidden blade,
yeah, into that, because Darby had been trying to go for something on him. Then Ospreay kind of tries to pick him up and go. I'm forgetting all the names of the moves now. JP, Stormbreaker. There you go. You'd be a great color commentator for me. And then Darby reverses that into, it's just like, it was the move nature of it. It was daft. There was minimal selling until the end of it, but it was the speed with which they went through those exchanges and the back and forths. It was genuinely like the first class stuff that you want to see in a non-WWE product. It was absolutely brilliant, and I loved every minute of it.
It was exactly the kind of thing you don't see on WWE TV. We often speak about AEW needing an identity, and we've also brought up that there is a contradiction in terms in some ways, where they need to do stuff that is non-WWE, but also with the realization that you just can't have great matches and that be it. I think the work they did on Collision at the very start with their promo, and the way that they brought in that kind of plausibility about, well, this is why Ospreay's not been getting involved with Death Rider's stuff, and just sort of having, it's not like it's a kickoff. They're not being like arseholes. They're actually being like more like human beings, of like, look, you're more invested in being angry at these guys than I am. I'm not going to do that. But it led to this, and it gave you that bit of needle. And like I say, that bump on the apron, that was fucking terrifying. I heard that, and I thought immediately, I was expecting fucking X signs and all sorts. And it was just like, well, Darby Allin's just a fucking loon. That sequence, which then went into the into the code red as well from the Stormbreaker. It's just like the levels of precision that these guys were doing. They're just fucking nailing everything. Ospreay, I know some people have said about, losing the 2 pay-per-view matches and then losing this. I don't think he loses anything on this, because I think the way that perhaps an AEW fan will look at it is like, I want to see these guys wrestle again, but I want it more stakes, and we can go to that. And neither one of them needs to be a heel in that process. You just got 2 competitive wrestlers trying to like kind of like go for whatever titles, tournaments, and championships they are.
I think to push back, that's okay, as long as Ospreay hasn't lost the matches that he's lost recently. It's the problem is when you're doing both, but it's a tournament, and we always say people have got to lose, haven't they? To make the tournament work, to make the wins and losses matter. And it's not like it wasn't in there. Like they went through all those sequences we just mentioned, into Darby getting the near fall with the Scorpion Death Drop, which was a great nod to his kind of half a promo. It's Showtime as he walked off at the top of the show, which absolutely, to your point, like they could have done an even better job of making this match feel important, but they did that legwork on Collision. You had those promos at the start of the show. I think all it was missing was for it, to be honest, being the main event of the show, because I didn't like the main event tag, so we can get into that in a little bit. This felt like the main thing on the show. They could have made it feel even more like the main thing in the show by making it the main event and not put it in that second to last quarter slot, which makes me a little bit interested in actually what it's going to do numbers wise. But as far as the execution went, it was a shootout. It was an important match, and it, like I say, it was in. Then it was, say, Darby with those near falls. It was Darby basically having to kill Ospreay to beat him, having to do like the coffin drop and then go back up and then hit it again. It felt desperate. It felt like, even if in the individual moments maybe things weren't massively sold, the accumulation of the match was sold by Darby into the finish there, and it looked like they they've both gone through a war, and a war befitting of some of the build that they gave it to. It was one of those matches, wasn't it, when we saw the schedule for this, or maybe not the schedule, just the layouts of the two groups. That was a match we all pointed at. I was like, that's one I want to see. That's a match that really, generally speaking, you wouldn't necessarily get just because of both of their placements on the card. It's the type of match you get in a tournament like this, and it's the type of match that, dare I say, if AEW ever does stop or go out of business or change entirely, it's the type of match that'll make it to mixtapes from AEW, you know, matches that, you know, happened on Dynamite that were 4 stars and above, whatever number you want to give it. This is one people are going to be watching in years to come, because it felt like a real special little diamond in this tournament.
It is, and it kind of highlighted what this tournament could be.
Yeah.
If you had, for example, where this is the main focus, and I think that's where I can get what you're saying about like the main event as well, because at times
it's weird because they've done that. They put Brody King. Who was Brody King against the other week, where they put him in the main event and it died. The quarter died. Like they've done that. So it was a bit odd to not do it this week. I mean, I suppose I understand if you want to. Yeah, it was Claudio.
Claudio.
I understand where you want to, you know, end with your Death Riders stuff at the end, but it's kind of a bit of a rubbish ending to Dynamite for me. I think this was the week to main event with a Continental Classic match, but it's not the biggest thing in the world. It was still the thing most people are talking about coming out of the show, and yeah, maybe it'll improve that second to last quarter. You know, the one that usually doesn't do the best.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that's when we look at the ratings, that's going to be like the really interesting trend line to see for that. And to go on to like you mentioned about like the main event and stuff, I can completely see your point. What as a match, it was like, I thought it was like a reasonably fun 6-man, like for what it was. I mean, I'll talk a bit about the opener as well, kind of like surprisingly enjoying bits of that as well. But there is the dynamics behind it, like even towards the end of it, I'm like, oh god, like it's very sort of WWE mismatched partners style stuff, not being able to get on for the sake of it, and not setting those 3 guys up in the best way as being contenders for Moxley, and just made you sort of almost telegraph what the ending of that main event's going to end up being.
Yeah, it's your trios version of, you know, partners who can't get along, and right down to the point of Hangman literally outright leaving, which is kind of the story, you know, bled through this match and coming back. Hangman just does feel a little bit, you know, he was shades of grey, and now he's, I don't know, a little bit cartoonish, trying to make his character fit this role. Same point I'd have on Jay White kind of being left out there to be the selling babyface with Orange Cassidy injured on the outside as well. Created an interesting role for him. He continues to perform well on the role, continues to get decent enough pops in there, even if it's not necessarily where I'd have Jay White. But it's just kind of the accumulation of it all. It's like the finish and the post match. It just felt awkward. It was almost like they finished Dynamite with a few seconds left, and everyone's just stood around, and Moxley's scratching his head, a bit like August 1 Warning is kind of what it felt like as Death Riders kind of surrounded them, and it just reminded me of how uninterested I am in this program and how much I just want to really get through it, really. And yeah, there's things to like about people's individual performances in it, but it continues not to move me. But it was one of the few things on Dynamite I didn't really like this week, so I wouldn't spend too much time on it. I suppose you mentioned it there, the other match from the Continental Classic I very much enjoyed, Shelton and I've got him down as Black Taurus here. He's still Black Taurus to me, damn it. I'll keep going with that. Another Shelton Benjamin good match with the Beast Mortos here. It felt a little bit like Shelton took a bit too much for me. It's weird because this was a weird show for the Hurt Business. It was like, because I've seen people criticize the Ricochet stuff, and I imagine we're going to too. But I think the knock-on effect of the Ricochet looking like such a geek on this show stuff was that the Hurt Business looked even more like big stars, and it was almost like Shelton ate up Mortos a little bit in this match, as far as being, it's like the Randy Orton problem in WWE, isn't it, where like he's cartoonishly big to the point where he makes someone like the Beast Mortos look small, and Mortos did a few power things but kind of got outshined by Shelton in that regard, and was maybe just filling in with more high flyer lucha stuff than it maybe even normally does. It all resulted in a fucking great match that I very much enjoyed, but weirdly came out of it thinking about Shelton Benjamin again more than I did Beast Mortos, just because of how impressive a lot of Shelton's strength stuff. There's the multiple German suplexes spot in this one that got really over as well, but it was just one of those fun matches that you don't expect to see. Shelton Benjamin versus the Beast Mortos, and then they go out there and they deliver and give you a fun one. Yeah, I was worried. My Shelton Benjamin fandom had been waning the last couple of weeks, JP, but he gave me a little refresh here, even if there was a couple of moments to be pausing of where you could probably kind of tell, I'm the XWB guy, I don't know who you are, just do your lucha shit and I'll throw you around. And it did result in a great match, but yeah, maybe that's Shelton's attitude to these things.
That always feels like it's always going to be his attitude. It's been his attitude when he's worked everywhere else bar WWE. Like this, I'm just doing what I want to do, and I'm not really going to lose to that many people. But as you have to say about the Hurt business, the Hurt Syndicate, I should say, on the whole, it's working, and they're very much a face unit. I just wish Mortos there was, even if he could get to play spoiler with the one match that he's got left, and I don't know if he can. I'm not sure who he's up against, if I'm honest. If that could be the case, I'd be quite happy with that, because he is someone who feels like, you know, there is something there. I mean, on what level it is, it's mid card.
It's got Mark Briscoe his next match. It's on the Collision this weekend.
Yeah, and to be honest, I could see him not getting anything there, because, like, why would you? People are invested in Mark Briscoe. I do want to, in case I forget about it, I do want to give a shout out to just the venue they ran and the crowd they ran, because it felt a lot more livelier. Because guess what? They're in a 4,000 seat arena. Like, and fuck me, what a difference that makes.
Near 3,000 feels and sounds a lot better. Oh, they were so loud. Yeah. Like, linked to this, like the Swerve stuff with the Hurt business, like they showed Swerve backstage, and the crowd was so loud that you could barely hear Swerve talking in the backstage segment, which told you it was a live segment. But it was like, honestly, him and Ricochet almost stopped because they felt like they had to let the crowd kind of get her out of that system. One, it made Swerve feel like a gigantic star, which he is, and two, yeah, the atmosphere was fantastic in there as well. But that was the thing linked to it. Yeah, obviously, was the other Hurt Syndicate stuff through the night, and yeah, like I say, before this match, the weird interaction with Ricochet, where I'm a bit split on it, because I saw a lot of, like, not in our Discord, but in other Discords, a lot of like, what are they doing? They're making Ricochet look like a geek. And it was very cool. Why is Ricochet allowing them to do this? And it was very clear he's playing some new character, like right down to the daft jacket that he had on. Like it was, you know, he looked like the Hurt business's nerdy little cousin, and seemed to be going for it on purpose. You can argue whether that's a good thing to go for or not, but he was clearly going for that. He's clearly been leaning into heel. Speaking of Beast Mortos, he's been leaning into like that kind of you know, attitude as a character, like recently, and right down to the Swerve segment back. He's added this weird laugh that is a thing that he's doing. Like, he's very clearly going heel here. Is it the right decision for Ricochet? I'm not sure, but I think he was trying to establish, you know, the defense of this segment was that he was trying to establish that he's he's the weedy kind of Weasley heel, and the Hurt Syndicate are kind of like the cooler, harder man heel, and he doesn't quite fit with them. That's the story we're trying to tell. Whether it's a good idea or not, if you're Trevor Man, as Swerve called him, I don't know.
I think that's the problem with him. Is it feels like, I was watching, it's like, where the hell's this really come from? It's like, I've got some idea of the attitude change, but this felt like, sometimes we say this, sometimes it's like it feels like you've missed a couple of weeks, even though you know you haven't, because it's like this character has changed in quite a fundamental way now at this point.
I think they've been quite subtle with it, and in the matches he's definitely been leaning heel. If anything, they've done that.
The leaning heel is fine, but the kind of this much character-based work is probably what I mean. Like, that feels like it's been not a step too far, because in some ways I'm like, fuck it, why not try it? Like, if you present Ricochet as Ricochet, I think that gets over to a limited degree. And if they want to get some real traction with him, they might have to try some new things. And this is one of the things that they'll try into the mix. It was just weird. And you're just trying to, and I suppose in my head, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, well, where does this go then? Does he join? It looks like he joins the Hurt business. It's like, okay, I think I'd be fine with that, of him being like the cocky one, as opposed to the kind of more stoic hard men.
Save some face for him if he did eventually join, and wasn't just this loser that got the hair business, what you call it, the business card ripped up on him and bullied around by the bigger boys.
Yeah, it's just, where does it, like, I suppose it's where does it go? What is the planning for this direction? Are we thinking a few months down the road, or are we thinking, is it more of a reactive change, saying actually we want to do some do some different things with you. This is the route we're going to push you down.
Yeah.
We don't really have a clear direction of where they end up.
It's risky business going with your gimmick as fucking geek, which was basically what his gimmick was on this Dynamite. Especially when your wing style is what Ricochet's is. Like I say, he's been leaning a little bit heel, but you still kind of question like longer term how that ring style fits in. But I'm willing to let it play out, I think, a bit more than some are. But yeah, I think there are question marks around like the sanity of trying to do this gimmick. But yeah, obviously they played off the history with him and Swerve, so presumably there'll be a payoff with that down the line. You know, talking about knowing each other years, and Swerve big brother them as well. So yeah, weird geeky little brother. I guess that's Ricochet's role going forward. Let's see how it translates in ring. But yeah, speaking of fucking geeks, we also had on this show MJF and Adam Cole continuing their horrendous program as MJF came out and had on screen, as Gareth pointed out in our group chat today, an image of a very skinny looking Adam Cole, yellow skinned Adam Cole, as MJF kept saying, and the commentator had to just make sure you were clear that this was a doctored image and not really just what Adam Cole looks like. Always a problem when one of your top heels leans so much into the truth, and then it was all set up for Adam Cole to cut a promo on screen, but actually be in the arena and go after MJF. And for me, it was all such low-hanging fruit that it honestly, this whole program has just made me question MJF. I feel like he's had his head turned. Like, not even by anything great. Like, he did the Adam Sandler film, and it's like, the Iron Claw. Will his part of the film even make it to tape? Who knows? But, like, just doing this stuff in Hollywood, or maybe there's another reason. It just feels like his focus is on AEW right now, and he's autopiloting it through these segments, and he's giving it all the MJF bravado. But for better or worse, all that MJF creativity that I think we've seen through his career doesn't feel to be quite there right now. And, there's always been a mix of good and bad ideas with MJF, but we're just kind of getting pure bad right now. And it feels to me like we're getting the work of a man who's not all the way engaged and is trying to fake it until he makes it, really. And it's not like this feud would be doing much either way, even if he was performing well. But I think it's making things even worse for me.
I mean, obviously, I disliked every aspect of this. I even disliked the Adam Cole's got enforcers going to ring. So I thought, well, we know where this is.
10, aren't they? And then we're gonna have another match at Revolution, which isn't until fucking March. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Get it over with.
That's what we got. Him and Kyle O'Reilly versus Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. Great. Yeah, I'm really excited for that. I also just thought with MJF, I just thought, I've seen this before. He's worn that same suit. He's delivered this exact same type of promo before. It was very obvious when he was doing like the kind of charity infomercial stuff. I thought, I know it's going to go up on him when he talked about skinny kid. It was like, you knew it was so obvious. There was no kind of subtlety, but it was also a rehash of other things that he's done and done better, frankly. And it made me think, ever since he signed that new contract, it's been like a poison chalice. It's just like he's down tools. He's like Emmanuel Adebayor. I've got the big money deal. That's it. I'm going to work as little as possible. I'm going to do as little as humanly possible. And he's getting away with it. And I know Gareth had said in one of our group chats, it's just like, he should have just gone to WWE. He should have just gone there. Should have just like tested
if
it
he
out.
Ever even had the contract, though, I don't believe the Bid War 2024 was ever real anyway. Like, I think he was already locked down, wasn't he? Ever since the promo in LA.
Yeah, he was. But it was, like you say, just fucking. It just reeked of lazy for a feud that just needs to die and not exist. For a match I don't care about. For a stipulation that I don't give a shit about. With people coming to ringside, that you just think, well, it's just fucking obvious why it's here. It's like, oh my god, it's just all bad.
What I thought, another positive on Dynamite this week, I thought, as Platter said in the chat there, Mercedes Moné and Anna Jay was a really decent opener. And again, it came off the back of, I like structurally Dynamite this week, the way they laid things out. Like, the open, it was like video package on video package on video package, and interview on interview on interview to kind of build up what was going to be on the show straight into a Mercedes Moné opener, which again, I'll be interested to see how it does in the quarters. And you know what? Have her out there, as we learned with New Japan last week. Not talking too much and just having a wrestler match. It was good. And Anna Jay's obviously been in Japan, hasn't she? And has been, I'm told quietly improving. And to be fair, based on the evidence here, I thought she looked good. Crowd got behind her as like an underdog, and it was it was well presented. You know, with the whole like in ring introductions at the start, felt like an important match. And for anybody watching, I think Anna Jay made a good account of herself, and it was the type of match that I think Mercedes needs. These types of matches, if they were weekly on TV and we weren't doing the other silly peppermint pilled stuff, we'd be a lot better off. But yeah, thought it was a good kind of combination with a match, like a TV version in a way of a match at a strong style evolved.
Yeah, do you know what? It made me just think that strong style evolved match had just come along at like completely the right time. It was a really good match. It seemed to restore her faith in herself. It was like there was a bit of like confidence that had come back in. What's the weakest point of her? Her promos by a million miles and the character stuff. So we're just not going to do that. We're just going to go straight into a match. And that worked better, even if she was dressed somewhat like in tribute to the John Goodman character out of Monsters, Inc. That was like slightly disarming. But at the same time, this was, I thought it was like a thoroughly decent opener for what it was. I didn't think it was particularly great. I mean, Chris mentions there in the chat as well that it's the third time in a couple of months that she's lost a big title match. That can be its own story. Like you can do that, and I think it's Anna Jay, so I'm not going to lose too much sleep necessarily over.
Yeah, you need that Anna Jay in your division, don't you?
Yeah, you need to have her lose several of these, and then get to the point where she starts to become like, okay, what do I need to do in order to win? And that becomes a good bit of character development in its own right. But I think it's just the idea of like, this is the way you need to present her. You need to rebuild with Mercedes Moné, and that means her having good matches on big shows and coming in and just working and just doing that and in there against people who are able to work as well at the same time. I mean, I don't know how the Mina Shirakawa match will necessarily do. I'd imagine that'll be fundamentally fine at Wrestle Dynasty. She's not wrestling at World's End as well, but we just don't need to see her character stuff. But I was like pleasantly surprised, and I don't think how many times have we sat down and watched a Mercedes Moné segment on TV, whether it's a match or a promo, and gone, yeah, that's all right. This is up there with some of the best presentations. And it's not to say this match was spectacular. It's more a damning indictment about how she's been presented up to this point.
Any other thoughts on anything else from Dynamite? That's kind of it, really. FTR seemed to tease that Adam Edge Copeland might be their backup against the Death Riders. Good to know they're unharmed after the kidnapping at the weekend. They seemed okay outside of a sore elbow or two. Yeah, that was kind of it, really. Obviously, we had the Christian and Hook tag. But yeah, I don't know how you felt, JP, having to watch Shibata have to lose a fall to Buddy Wayne's son, Nick Wayne. The match itself was better than I expected, because I'm pretty ice cold on most of those characters. I'm not all the way out on Christian, but I'm not finding it as entertaining as I used to. Maybe a bit of overexposure doing this character and the silly thing with the Money in the Bank contract. But despite my lack of interest going in, I think they actually did work a good match. So I don't know, where were you on?
They did. I just wish it wasn't Katsuyori Shibata eating the pin here. I'm sorry. There was a point in time where that guy felt absolutely special, and beating him was a big deal. And in an alternative universe, he's wrestling Zack Sabre Jr. at Wrestle Kingdom in his big return match to New Japan. And instead, he's on here, and he's like, he would have been someone perfect for the Continental Classic, just for the clash of styles and other stuff like that. And that's more like the underutilization of him, but also, like you say, the overexposure for Christian. But it's not.
I think he's overutilized. To be honest, that would be my hot take. Shibata. I just think at this point, with what he can do in limited quantities, like you're almost hating the order of the man, sending him out there. It should be few and far between, I think. Great that he's wrestling again, but yeah, I think that's more the problem for me.
I see your point. Like, I mean, he should be like a big match attraction. Like, he should be like a final boss type.
No, I don't think that, because I don't think he can deliver those matches anymore. Have we got any evidence of him like delivering those types of matches recently? Like, he'd drown at a Wrestle Kingdom, I think, these days.
Let's stick him in there. I'm willing to give it a fucking punt.
Put him with Naito. Maybe look
better. Compared to what we've seen with New Japan in the last few years, and with Shota Umino being the main event of the Tokyo Dome, I'm willing to give it that go. But that's a hill that I'll happily die on and for it as well. And Nick Wayne is good. That's not a slight on him. Even if he gets his tanning wrong, because if you noticed his hands, honestly, it's like he was fucking
Wrestlers are always
radioactive.
bad with that. Shawn
Oh,
Michaels never used to be good at it either.
he was like I mean, he's got his mum there. Can she not help put it on? Like you'd imagine she'd have some semblance about how to put it on compared to him. But yeah, it was absolutely fine. I can also give a shout out. I mean, we had another Bandido segment that was kind of slightly more about him as the wrestler. That was fine. But Chris Jericho in New York was just like, I just felt it was absolutely pointless. Just a waste of Chris Jericho's in New York. Cool. Like what what did it actually do? It didn't seem to serve any benefit. Whereas I would have just preferred them to do a straight up 3-minute advertisement for Final Battle and do that instead of this. That just felt like it was just a gigantic waste of time.
Always ready, Matt Cardona's work. I'm going to get into that in a bit, but
God.
yeah, not exactly set on my world. But outside that, I did, there's definitely things to hate. MJF and Adam Cole, especially, and the Death Rider stuff continues to not be for me. But give me matches as good as Ospreay and Darby and Shelton out there. I'm continuing to call him Black Taurus, and the hair business were presented well. Swerve was back. We missed him last week. I was glad to see him on here, and they presented Omega like he's a big deal. Enough ticks in the box for me there to say this was a better Dynamite than the current watermark. So let's hope it continues through Christmas. We're going to get to some of those shows coming up over Christmas. But firstly, a couple of quick news notes. As I say, always ready. Matt Cardona. Apparently, he's been offered an AEW contract, JP, which is quite funny, really. As Steph pointed out in the Discord, that at the time he came in and worked, Cody and him and Jericho were on Jericho's podcast talking about how, we thought Tony had signed you, and Matt Cardona going, yeah, me too. Oh well. And now it's just like, yeah, we'll sign Matt Cardona. I assume as an ROH hire going forward, is the deal there.
Yeah, although if they do the Ring of Honor GCW stuff, as we'll get into it later on, then he should be almost be like the figurehead for the GCW team on it as well. I come back to the point, the idea they should have a moratorium on signing people. They don't need them. If you want someone on limited term dates, then that's absolutely fine, but you don't need too much more outside of that. But the idea of them signing him, I thought, well, of course that's the case. But also as well, if you think about it, a big part of Matt Cardona and where he earns his living is through merch. It's through merch and it's other kind of residual stuff. Is he going to be able to do that with AEW? And do you really want to put all of his merchandising stuff in the hands of the people who are in charge of it at the moment? Because I fucking wouldn't. I wouldn't trust them for a second.
He's made them off 30 quid, doesn't he, or whatever he charges at Progress, and they're like that. Maybe he's made all the money he'll make, and he was soddy. I'll take the guaranteed deal. Although, yeah, it's only been rumored that he's been offered the contract, not that he's accepted it. So we'll see what kind of deal that is. But yeah, I don't know if he's necessarily going to. Even if you are trying to stock ROH with its own wrestlers, which they should do, don't know about Matt Cardona. At least this muted version of Matt Cardona, as you said on the spotlight, is necessarily the one to do it. But there we go. Yeah, one last quick AEW news though before I get into the weekend shows.
And I thought it was interesting. Every once in a while, Variety will focus on a big story there as well. But they had their Deal Makers 2024 article on there. And who was up there? First of all, Big Tony Khan. He says on here.
First name.
Yeah, exactly. It was in October, 5 weeks of the year, that Khan launched professional wrestling promotion AEW as a direct competitor to Vince McMahon's long dominant WWE. He closed a media rights deal worth $185 million a year. This is the interesting point. The company is valued at more than $2 billion, making it the third most valuable combat sports company in the world. Ain't bragging if it's true. Oh, and you're right. And this is, it's a fair point on that, but that's like a really big deal. And I think that's the bigger thing with AEW that sometimes we miss when we get lost in the minutiae and the detail. He took something that didn't exist or existed as like this fantasy in fans' heads and has turned it into a multi-billion-dollar company. And that can't be fucking sniffed at. Like he really has. Like that in and of itself is kind of incredible. Not the only person from the world.
Scrolling a while here to get to Nick Khan. Where's Nick Khan? He's way down the list.
I'm thinking he is way down.
You have to do a control F, Jeff. Find him.
I'm gonna have to on here. I'm gonna have to filibuster in the meantime.
There he is.
Get down.
Way down.
Where is he? Down there with
Harry
Emanuel.
Emmanuel. Nick Khan, Mark Shapiro, and Andrew Scheimer. Is it Shima? Yeah, all of the TKO people basically on as a big list slash endeavor.
Which, again, that's not really so much of a surprise. It's the kind of thing that you'd expect, like a variety, to be able to kind of like pick up on that as well. But like, my God, like you think of the deal that they signed in terms of Netflix, as particularly in an unstable media climate as well. But the fact they're getting the recognition, and it's recognition within the entertainment industry, which in and of itself will make people like super agents, like studios as well, go, actually, it's worth investing in wrestling. Now, whether or not the effects of that are felt downwards, where people look at it and go, do you know what? Why don't we invest in a wrestling company? It seems like there is potential for growth. If a company can come out of nowhere and be worth 2 billion, then like, you know, and I get that there'll be some quibbling over the kind of figures on that, then my God, why wouldn't you perhaps invest in a TNA, which has already got like its own kind of back catalogue and content and things like that? Perhaps that is the case there as well. I mean, yeah, it is. It's an interesting piece, particularly when it's these outside kind of trade industry places like Variety talk about wrestling, and they talk about it in the way that we don't. It's just this nuts and bolts. Look at what it is. Look at the money it draws.
Yeah, and if you do the B, be like Andy says, you'd be furious that Tony Khan's the first name in there and picture you see there and there quite a lot later on. But yeah, it does show you the strength of that deal AEW did. But on the rest of the AEW notes, we get into our previews, and before we get to Hammerstein weekend, we do have Rampage that was taped, I believe, with Dynamite last night, which has Mark Davis and Powerhouse Hobbs against Brian Cage and Konosuke Takeshita, who's winning and just unfortunately sidelined in favour of Kyle Fletcher, it seems. And I feel like he's been on TV every week. He's one who could have easily been in the Continental Classic. Bit of a shame he wasn't, but maybe they needed people to eat pins and didn't want to have him in that role. But hey ho. Action Andretti and Leo Rush are teaming up on Rampage this week. Willow Nightingale versus Harley Cameron, woman of many talents, and Brody King versus Commander in a Continental Classic match on Rampage as well.
Shout out for the Harley Cameron little segment she did with the 12 deals of Christmas for AEW. She's fucking good at that.
The little doll. Yeah, ventriloquist. What a skill.
She is very, there's something about her there, just as a character, maybe as a manager, not as a wrestler. I'd probably go as far to say, but yeah, definitely something there. We do have Ring of Honor TV in the build up to Final Battle as well. Oh my God. Lee Johnson versus Bishop Khan, even. Murder Machines, Lance Archer, Brian Cage versus the Iron Savages, of course. Queen Amanita versus Lady Frost, who's always on Ring of Honor. Sidney Akeem, you might remember him. He was that gymnastics bloke from bloody WWE.
The team with the big boss man in the 80s. Oh, he was good.
Oh, mate. Old one-man gang. I'm wanting to remember his real name, and it's not coming to mind. Versus Serpentico. Grizzled Young Vets and Shane Taylor Promotions of Shane Taylor and Lee Moriarty versus the Dark Order and Undisputed Kingdom. Billy Starks and Athena versus To Be Determined. And an update. Oh, who would have guessed it? Update on Chris Jericho versus Matt Cardona.
Maybe they'll go around some more spots around Times Square as Jericho did. They did recognise a few of the spots he was in on Dynamite. But yeah, that takes us into Final Battle, JP. And yeah, like if you're not aware, taping a lot of stuff at Hammerstein this weekend. So it's kind of an AEW ROH Hammerstein weekend. We're going to talk. Collision's actually coming live from Hammerstein on Saturday as well. So that's going to be fun to get to see before Dynamite obviously is airing on is it Christmas Day or Boxing Day? Which one's Wednesday?
It's Christmas Day.
Christmas Day, yeah, it is Christmas Day. So yeah, they're getting that in the can as well this weekend. But yeah, using the time to start off with a bit of a ROH Final Battle, JP, one of the big shows of the year on my calendar.
Oh, it is, isn't it, mate? I mean, this is very much following in the tradition of final battles that you've seen, the great ones from the past, from 05, 06. Yeah, this one's definitely up there. In this, what I have to always say looks like a beautiful venue. It's like I see your Liverpool Olympia and I raise you a Hammerstein ballroom.
Incredible.
It is. It looks absolutely great. It's the venue behind me here for video viewers from a place you know very, very well as well there. We start off with Jay Lethal versus QT Marshall is on there. Okay.
ROH legend, Jay Lethal. Fair enough. Huh? QT Marshall. Also ROH veteran. He was around in the 2000s.
Oh, always. ROH Pure title. It's Lee Moriarty in an open challenge. I don't know who the hell that's going to be against. I don't know. I'd say Katsuya Ishibata. Might as well chuck him in there.
He'd
They
fit
normally
that.
do for this type of stuff, but he does fit into that mold. Ring of Honor Women's World Television title. Red Velvet versus Layla Hirsch. Smell a title change there. Ring of Honor World Television title. Survival of the Fittest 6-way elimination match. I like it when it's elimination rules. Brian Cage versus Willie Mack versus AR Fox versus Mark Davis versus Commander versus Blake Christian. And then for the World Tag Team title, the Sons of Texas, Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara versus the Righteous of Dutch and Vincent. Yeah, Texas Bull Rope match. And then it's a double main event. We've got for apparently the Ring of Honor World title match. This isn't the one that's going to be going on second last, I think. Chris Jericho versus Matt Cardona, we've already spoken about. And in the main event, a story I've been building for what is the last year and a bit. Ring of Honor Women's World title match, Athena versus Billy Starks.
And if you're wondering why we haven't covered Tony Khan's media call for this final battle, he said fucking nothing. He wasn't even asked a good question. Barely one. There was kind of half a GCW question, but not even a full one. Didn't even bring up Effie. Just brought up Jericho going there. There are interesting news shenanigans around this. One thing I suppose he was not necessarily pushed on, but did offer in counter to what the promoting had done so far. It very much looked like Jericho and Cardona was the clear main event of this show, despite, if you actually watch the ROH TV, which isn't many people, Athena and Billy Starks probably arguably, despite being a little bit past its peak, being the big match, I think, to the people who watch ROH TV. Looks like they're a double main event now. So the question now is going to be who goes on last. I think they're going to have the sense, unless there's a big angle, and we keep saying it'd be fucking hilarious if Joey Janela and the lads turn up and the Jericho and Cardona match turns into some kind of Effie-led schmoz. I don't know if you necessarily want to end the show with that, and Athena and Billy Starks would just be a better... It'd just be a better message to the roster, wouldn't it? It'd be a better message to the people who are invested in ROH, and, Athena, who's just been, trapped on ROH islands compared to everybody else on the show. I think she deserves it as well. But yeah, Platt says here has to be a title change for the women. Have Athena win in the Dome and use the title shot to come to AEW proper. Yeah, you could potentially do that and give Billy the big win there. But do you see them going on last with it, JP, or do you think it'll be Jericho and Cardona?
I think it should be Athena and Billy Starks. I think it should be. What I think, and the problem here is it's Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
If he had the good sense about him to go, actually, she's been the cornerstone of this company, and if she's going to lose the title, that has to be in a main event slot, because in the 2020s, the idea of anyone holding a title for 2 years, defending it quite regularly is unheard of. And she's done such a good job, and I agree with what Chris said there. This is the perfect time for her to lose the belt.
Yeah,
she loses it to person in the long-term storyline. She's already got an in to win the match at the Dome as well, and get into AEW proper, where she'll feel like a big deal when she comes in, because she'll be almost like this mythological character who's been around but not been around at the same time. And I think you can do the whole kind of schmoz stuff with GCW beforehand to almost liven the crowd up into watching what will be a proper, better wrestling match, with something with a bit more, has a bit more emotion to it, because Chris Jericho, Matt Cardona has to be bells and whistles, given the two people there as well for how good it is. So I think the common sense thing for me would be to finish with Athena versus Billy Starks. But Chris Irvine might feel otherwise, as he so often does.
I think he's canny enough, though, as well, to understand the PR win of not going on last year. So I wonder whether he'll play the game there and go for that. I assume he retains. I assume he remains ROH champion going forward, unless they are doing something wild with GCW and Cardona. But again, the on-screen story hasn't told that story. It's the stuff we've seen off-screen in GCW that's more told that story. But maybe we'll see. I could see Layla Hirsch winning the TV title. But again, a lot of this, it's like, well, most of us watching this pay-per-view are watching it blind, aren't we? It's just, these matches going to be good is probably all you can really do as far as breaking it down. Will the Texas Bull Rope match be any good with Dustin and Masami Guevara against the Righteous? I had a little soft spot for the Righteous at one point, mainly because of their theme. I could see that surprising and being a good little match in there as well. Survival of the Fittest, like. You can go on the Wikipedia, JP, and you can see a Survival of the Fittest winner for probably most years. It won't be every year, but most years in the last 2.5 decades or whatever it is. Most people can't name you who won any of them. It's not really a thing that anybody thinks. I don't think, at least my generation of ROH thinks of with any deal of I don't know, just a heart or love. But it's a thing they bring back. It's a 6-way elimination match. There's not much more to it. That might be fun. Few spots. It's the way of getting the spotty match on the card, isn't it? Without doing a daft ladder match and injuring everybody. And Commander's going to be up for it. AR Fox is going to be up for it, and Willie Mack as well. Always shines in a match like this. So more like a scramble match there, if we're using old ROH terminology. I could see that being a lot of fun in there as well. So yeah, and Lee Moriarty, whose opponent's going to be. Don't know if I have any guesses really. Like say Shibata's one, Tim Thatcher maybe. No real reason to say that. Just he'd be a fun opponent. Can't really think of anybody else. Is there anyone's in the chat predicting?
Unless it's someone from New Japan or they got on loan. Like that would be the only other kind of thing. Like, do they get lazy and put a Tomohiro Ishii in there because they can? Because it feels like the kind of thing that they would do. You know what I mean? It feels like that's a very Tony Khan like booking decision to put someone like that into the mix. I mean,
Josh Alexander, Platt says that's not a bad shout. Yeah,
that would be
do that.
Cracking shout if that was the case. If they were going to get him in there,
Evil Andy says that wouldn't be so cracking.
Wouldn't be watching it. No, but I just wouldn't fucking bother me ass. He's forgotten how to wrestle now at this point. I mean, in the main, for the title matches, there is at least like a bit of difference between all of them. You can see how you can kind of pull little bits apart on it. It's very hard to be enthused by it. It could turn out to be a perfectly good show, but it's not a show I'm going in there with any real expectation. It's more like watching Ring of Honor of 2018, 2019, where it was just
competent, deliriously booked ROH. Yeah.
They were delivering competent shows,
and it was probably strong.
there was some good wrestlers on there, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's like the incompetent version of it, but I will be watching it. It'll be something to do on Friday Night World. I can't imagine we're going to call an emergency spotlight to review it. Who knows? Maybe something gigantic. Maybe Bryan Danielson answers Lee Moriarty's challenge or something like that. Who knows? I'll take that. But yeah, I expect Athena and Billy Starks to be the match of the show and the one people, despite maybe some misgivings about the build going in, we'll be talking about. But outside of that, they are also taping Hammerstein, like I mentioned. Collision, which will say taped, will be live with Mark Briscoe versus the Beast Mortos. We're going to have Shelton Benjamin versus Daniel Garcia. We're going to have Claudio Castagnoli versus Darby Allin. And we're going to have a match that they have been promoting, to be fair, making me feel a bit, somewhat of a deal. Ricochet and Will Ospreay will be the match there. So I guess we'll get to see. I imagine Ricochet will be playing it up with that crowd, who are obviously going to go very much for Ospreay based on Dynamite happens. That could be a lot of fun. And then they will also be taping Dynamite on 34th Street, which is the Christmas night Dynamite. Can't imagine that doing great numbers, but it's something for us all to watch on Boxing Day. Will Ospreay versus Brody King is on that show, so Ospreay doing double duty. Ricochet versus Darby Allin. Claudio Castagnoli versus Commander. We've got Shelton Benjamin versus Kazuchika Okada, and we've got Kyle Fletcher versus Daniel Garcia. Bit of a shame, as I think Connor said in putting the Continental Classic stuff together on the Discord, that a lot of this is happening on shows that are probably going to be among the lowest watched of the year. Not ideal going into World's End, especially when at World's End the semis of of this are going to be all we know. We're not even going to know the final, so they're going to be able to use that to sell World's End. And a lot of people might not even know what the semis are going into the pay-per-view, and that's the problem when you have a pay-per-view on December the 28th.
That is the issue. But you look at these matches in isolation, and I'm there thinking, like, Ricochet Ospreay, obviously. I'm intrigued. Shelton Benjamin versus Kazuchika Okada. I'm sure they had a match in New Japan that would be a lot worse than this. Will Ospreay, Brody King. I would be like, I think that has the potential to be something really good, particularly if they want Brody King to play spoiler at all and not have him get to the semi-finals. But then that feels like it might be a loss too many. But that Ricochet, Darby Allin in there as well, Carl Fletcher, Daniel Garcia. There's good stuff across these two shows, and it feels like it's properly Continental Classic heavy as well, which in some ways there's episodes of the TV over the past few weeks where you think, I wish it had been like that. And I also wish that they'd spaced out this tournament a bit more. That would have been
thought it through. Nice. Like say, a match randomly being on Rampage. It's hard to get excited for the scenarios when no one really knows the schedule and nobody really knows when the matches are taking place. Or even when they put the graphics on screen, you're like having to squint. Okay, how many matches have they had? You can't really play that game as much when it's not very well laid out. But match wise, you're absolutely right. Some fun ones there, and I'm sure we'll all catch up on it over Christmas, as well as Rampage on 34th Street, which is also being taped this weekend as well. No matches for that yet. But yeah, on top of that, SmackDown is a tape show. Andrade, Apollo Crews, and LA Knight v. The Bloodline. Jacob Fatu, Solo Sikoa, and Tama Tonga's on there. Carmelo Hayes v. Brony, the Strowman. Alex Shelley versus Johnny Gargano is on there. That's a weird one. There's like couple of years ago, we'd be previewing a Beyond card or something like that, and that'd be on that. Bianca Belair and Naomi versus Candice LeRae and Nia Jax, and I believe an appearance by Cody Rhodes. Don't know if that's a spoiler or not, but there we go. And yeah, TNA also taking place this. I believe that it also taped
with a special best of 2024 show on there as well. So include, apparently, according to them, taking a look back at unforgettable moments, shocking matches, and biggest highlights of the year, including Jordan Grace versus Trinity, Josh Alexander versus Will Ospreay, and ABC versus The System. And they will unveil the winners for Knockout of the Year, Tag Team of the Year, Moment of the Year, and One to Watch in 2025. So that is that's TNA on Access.
Well, I mentioned at the top of the show, and we've got the main event coming up later. But I think the main event of the other shows this weekend is Rev Pro's Uprising, which is taking place on Saturday, the 21st. The Saturday York Hall show, and any other weekend. I think I'd have made the trip for this one, as we have Luke Jacobs versus Michael Oku for the British Heavyweight Championship. As you mentioned, Mina Shirakawa versus Danny Luna. Danny Luna could play spoiler for some big plans coming up for Wrestle Kingdom weekend. I doubt it, but you never know. For the British Women's title, we have a 1 hour Ironman match. That's actually my first time seeing that. I didn't realize that. Leon Slater versus Zozaya. That's bold and brave on a York Hall show that's got quite a few matches here. Shunsai Machine versus, easy for me to say, Connor Mills and Jay Joshua. Masquerada Dorada versus Robbie X, which would be a fun little opener. I think Robbie X might even get a win there. Now he's in the Bullet Club. Serena Deeb on the show versus Kanji, as we mentioned a few weeks ago. That's a nice little get for Rev Pro to have Serena Deeb. And we have CPF versus Will Caven, Mark True, and Kieran Lacey in the for the Trios Grand Prix trophies, which they've been building as well. On paper, decent little card.
Decent card. I would say. Unfortunately, though, I think the 1 hour match, I think there's a lot of it where do you put that on the card? Do you put it on just before the interval? Do you have two matches before it and then have that? You have to. It's bold. It's ballsy. It's two of their young guys that they want to go with, particularly Zazoya, whose push is there. And we know, having seen him as well, there is something there.
Chris Lene wasn't a fan. I heard on Graps and Claps podcast. Speaking of which, in the chat, there's Andy.
Yeah, an hour is asking a hell of a lot of these guys, and I'm not entirely convinced they're going to be able to do it. Happy to be proven wrong onto it. If they do, and they do manage to pull off something that's really good, then like fair play. Fair play. Then they're both elevated.
Just go off an hour and tell everyone it was an hour. Just do that. Like go recruit Steamboat, meet some more Ironman matches like that. That's what I want. 30 minutes.
Just bribe Gage to lie, just to
oh yeah, there is that. Gage and Hamilton and the others in the crowd. We're keeping them honest, won't they? That's the issue. What can you do?
But I think in some ways that the intrigue for that, because that's going to dictate something. The first half of the show goes, then what is it going to be like pacing wise? Is the crowd going to be burnt out for the second bit? It dictates what some of the pace of some of the other matches are going to be. I mean, I would agree with Andy here in the chat where he's saying, like, in terms of the main event, Oku wins his title back, and I think Oku goes heel. I have banged the drum on this for ages, and I think this is the point where you could perhaps do this as just like your big twist into the new year of Michael Oku as heel champion on top. and I think that might be a way to go against Happy Smiley Luke Jacobs.
We've been teasing it for a very long time, and yeah, it would help Oku, coming out. It was weird coming out of like Copper Box. We were all like, well, maybe Oku's going to AEW. Maybe that explains this. Doesn't seem that's happening. So yeah, another reign with the title, but this time, with a very different character. I could see there being a lot of fresh stuff to do in the new year with that. So yeah, that I'll definitely see. Mina Shirakawa and Danny Luna, like I say, no real doubt there, but it's always, it's good getting sure Mina Shirakawa sells some tickets for them. In there with Danny Luna, who's had a good couple of years. I think I'd see that being a good little semi-main event there. Sunshine Machine always deliver on these types of shows. I would say against Connor Mills and Jay Joshua. See that being maybe the pick of the undercard outside of Dorada and Robbie X. To be fair, Serena Deeb and Kanji, I could see that being very good too. All of these matches have got good potential.
I think they have. I mean, in some ways, I wonder whether or not 6 matches would have been the way to go, given that you've got an hour match in there as well, and not trying to burn them out and not finish too late on the 21st.
It's hard to win it. You want to not give these people a spot on. They've been doing all your 229s and stuff all year, and your Southamptons and York Hall. It still has that attached to it, doesn't it? But it does read on paper maybe like one too many. But they all look good, don't they? They look like good matches.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it looks good, and I will watch it. Like I know that, like effectively, I'm like I'm with the kids on Saturday, so it feels like it's perfectly set up to go. Actually, I'll watch this while this going on, while waiting for and it'll be finished by the time before Fury and Usyk get to do their ring walks as well. So I think this is going to be, good. It's just I just hope that the Iron Man match is good, because again, I'm sorry to bang on about it. I think sometimes we've seen this. The problem can be the burnout of crowds, but the other stuff around perfectly decent. It's good imports in there as well.
Yeah, and it's good. It doesn't feel like since the Copper Box people have maybe nationally even, or like it doesn't feel like, at least in our bubble, maybe it's just our bubble following like our types, that there's been a huge amount of focus on Rev Pro aside from the individual local shows they've had. So hopefully this is one that it brings everyone together and they do pull those matches off. But yeah, anyone who's going down, hope they have a great time. I'll keep it brief for the next couple. We've got the main event to come. JP, I definitely want to get in. WXW's 24th anniversary is in fact this weekend as well. A lot of promotions saving shows for this Christmas weekend. That's got Peter Tahani v. Lance Strowman on it, and Anita Vaughan versus Riho is on the show as well. CCW's in the spirit of Christmas, JP, Cage of Death is taking place from Atlantic City, New Jersey, at the ACXI Studios. That's got Lindsay Dorado, Rich Swann on it, Jada Stone and Janie Burke versus Pretty Magic, Tarzan Duran versus Dr. Redacted, Dmitry Alexandrov, who sounds like a Chelsea winger from the 90s, versus JJ Allen. Brandy Watts and Randy Summers are on the show. Don't know who they are. Against Mike Walker, former Everton manager, and Vinny Talata. That could be real, could be a JP as well.
Oh, yeah.
Aaron Cash v. Kenta v. DCM Pratt and Mickey Knuckles versus Judge Joe Dredd on there. Okay, fair enough. Also, House of Glory got a show. Zilla Fatu will continue to claim to be related to the bloodline. Oh, yes. Against Jake Something, Megan Vane v. Ali Catch, and Idris Jackson versus Carlo Ramirez, JP. But not the main event of the weekend or the week, as we previewed Dynamite. So I thought this would be a fun little segment, JP. What have we got going on Christmas week?
Well, mate, if we're getting into the real wars, the real interpromotional wars, BBC One, Christmas Day TV schedules. Mate, when you put this up on air, I was like, wow.
Screams you.
Wow. Incredible. But it also brought up an inevitable scheduling conflict that I will not win in this as well, as Charlie starts to start banging on the door as I'm doing this bit on here.
He's excited to watch Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Foul on Christmas Day on BBC.
I think so. I think he definitely is. I don't think he's excited to watch the King's Speech, followed by the Weakest Link Christmas special. That's lazy. Strictly Come Dancing Christmas special. I'll be avoiding that because I ended up watching the final round of the In-Laws last Saturday. I hadn't expected to, but it was just like we were staying there and having tea, and it was on, and it was like, oh, okay, the blind bloke won. Doctor Who, Joy to the World, which will end up being on, as you'll get onto in a minute. Dear to my heart, so that'll be watched here because the lads love Doctor Who. 6:10 Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Foul, and it's, if I'm right in thinking, is it not the return of the fucking penguin.
That's the one that's going on. I was never a Wallace and Gromit fan. I as a kid, I just, no offense to everyone, I just thought you were nerds if you like Wallace and Gromit. As I penciled my, I drew my pencil case with Stone Cold Steve Austin logos and DX logos and such. Never was into Wallace and Gromit, but I believe it's the one that's, I think, worldwide. It's on Netflix, isn't it, in January?
Yeah.
But the BBC have gotten it earlier on Christmas Day. 6 o'clock for your timestamps there, folks. 6:10 is Wallace and Gromit. Ooh.
Big couple of main eventers there as well, to the point where you had to knock over your mic in order to.
Excited, mate. This is the big one.
I'm excited for that. That'll be watched, definitely. And I would maintain that Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit is an incredible film, an incredible film. 7:30, EastEnders. What's going to be happening that day? Whatever it is, it's not going to be good. Two murders last year. Well, one of them hadn't died, and the other one did die. I never followed up with what was actually going on, but we'll end up watching that. Call the Midwife Christmas Special Part 1. No, I'm in any part of that.
What is that?
It's set in, I want to say, it's gone from like the 50s into the 60s in London, and it's about a group of fucking nuns who act as midwives, and there's always some problem. It's like Ye Olde Casualty. But Gavin and Stacey, the finale. Now, Vicky hadn't watched any Gavin and Stacey, and she spent the last week binging it and then falling asleep. And so I've ended up catching up on loads of it. And you forget actually kind of how good it is. But it's, as Andy says there in the chat, real big couple of shows there as well. Then followed by EastEnders After Dark as well, 10:35 kicking off. As you can hear Charlie screaming.
I'll let you grab Charlie. Grab him if you want. It's the end of Christmas part of the show. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Gavin and Stacey against Type. It is a show I really like. I don't know what it is. I'm absolutely not a James Corden fan, but I kind of watch Gavin and Stacey and just manage to separate the two in my head and just think about the show itself and the characters in it. But I think it's a show with a bit of heart. It's funny, and yeah, it's the type of show where on site I always hated it, but when I actually sat down and watched it, as JP just said there, Gavin and Stacey's is fun, and it's going out. Everyone loves a good finale, and I'm glad they're going to close the loop and have one big final episode. But yeah, do you expect me to be a Gavin and Stacey fan, JP or Charlie?
I mean, he's seen some of it by osmosis, but then like you can't watch it really in front of the kids because it does get a bit rude, like in a good way. Ruth Jones in particular, it's just amazing. It was basically how your semi-main eventers were your real main eventers. Gavin and
Rob Brydon's so funny in that show as well. Like he's another one. He's the mid carder in it. But you're right, Gavin and Stacey are the unknowns, aren't they? Essentially,
Mark Briscoe. That's who Rob Brydon is in that show. It's just like just an unexpected pleasure throughout the whole thing. Some of the references he makes as well. Songs. It's taking the place in the schedule for me this year, like 2 doors down usually would. The one that Grado's in, because I think the producer died last year, so they've just stopped. They're not doing it anymore. They're never going to finish it, unfortunately, because they don't feel like they can do the show without him. I think he was the writer / producer. Devastating, really. I used to really love that show, and a sad story and a sad end. But at least I've got Gavin and Stacey, and yeah, will I watch the 2-parter EastEnders? Depends if I'm still awake at my mum's, or I've come home and I put Home Alone 2 on, which to that point, over on ITV, we've got them all, JP, the Christmas Day schedule for ITV at 3 o'clock. They are also showing the King's Speech. I will not be watching that. They do have Home Alone 2 on the schedule, 3:10, so maybe I'll get it in then. Well, what time's Christmas dinner in your household, JP? Like my mum's usually a late one. It's usually about 3, but I hear some families who have it at about 12, so always feels wrong to me. What are you? My mum would do 12. I think we're aiming for like 1:30, 2, because we can't. The problem is kids' lunch is normally about 12ish, so you've got to go just a bit past that and actually eat the roast. And if you figure for the cooking times, we'll be up early doors doing it. This little man, you'll want to feed sometime around 1:30. I reckon is what he's going to end up doing.
How'd you feel like breakfast on Christmas Day?
Oh yeah, it's breakfast on Christmas Day. I don't know. Normally, I just end up being swept up with like cooking and stuff. So it's like, no, I need to concentrate on that. And Aldi are doing a lot of their big stuff on Saturday for like selling the turkeys and that. There's going to be a mad rush. And there's a part of me think, do I need to be there as it opens? Given it's only across the road, it's hardly a stretch to go across. But yeah, you're going to have to go across. You'll be there as well. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, for me, it's always tough because it's like I want to have like a nice sausage butty or something like that. But if you have it too late, it's going to ruin your dinner. You got to time it out pretty well.
You want to be hungry.
You don't want it too hungry then, because it ruins the day, because you're just waiting for the food and you can smell it all going. And again, it's like, if it's my mum, it might turn into 4 o'clock, and that's fucking late in the day. But I'm excited. I'm starving just talking about it. But yeah, I won't be watching the King's Speech anyway while I'm having me dinner. But yeah, so King's Speech, Home Alone 2, Bullseye Christmas Special is on ITV. JP, I didn't even know that when I put this together. 5:25 p.m. I presume that's new also.
Mate, I absolutely would be if it wasn't for bloody Doctor Who on BBC One. So it means there's no chance for that. So it's like 8 o'clock.
Day was.
When Call the Midwife's on, there we are. We're fucking
Throw it on.
Then I can get that in there pre-Gavin and Stacey, basically.
Get the t-shirt on. Get the crisps out. You need to do it proper. You'll have a little break in the schedule. ITV News and Weather. Emmerdale and Coronation Street back to back though. 6:30 and 7 o'clock. Not head to head with actually half head to head with EastEnders. Getting a bit of a head start on Easties at 7:30 as Coronation Street runs through to 8. We then got the Chase Christmas Special and then Downton Abbey and New Era. I will definitely not be at my mum's if she left that on. As Andy says, yeah, everyone crashes after the Christmas lunch. Everyone falls asleep on the couch. I will hope I'm zonko by the time that stuff's airing.
Fuck Downton Abbey, posh people in love. Fuck off. Want no part of that shit. Sorry, Charlie, but it's like
he agrees.
Repeat stuff as well, so it's like it's a worry. You wave. You're gonna wave. You're gonna wave.
He's having a little giggle and sort of.
He is having.
He's just excited for the show.
But
yeah, go on. Wrapping us up, JP. We've got the indie choice. We've got the IWC choice as far as Christmas Day goes.
It is very IWC this on this one here. Very much like some interesting stuff on it. 2:45, the Italian job. Yeah,
this is Channel 4. Yeah,
Channel 4 on there. Followed by 4:50, alternative Christmas message. I don't know who's going to be giving that. Probably the new head of Syria or something like that.
Yeah, they haven't said. As far as I know, was it Stephen Fry last year? Don't know what's going to be.
I'm trying to think of it. Frank Bruno. AI? Fuck it. Yeah, AI. That'd be dark, wouldn't it? It'd just be.
I think that's a word that might be what to do.
Overlords with a Christmas message.
It's not head to head with the King's Speech though. Cowards. Didn't they used to do that back in the day? They'd run head to head with it. Not till 10 to 5. Not having that.
Yeah, it's a bit lazy on their part doing that. It's just like, no, go big or go home, lads. Go up against it or don't bother at all. 4:55. Channel 4 news for 5 minutes. So I'm assuming it'll cover whatever horrific humanitarian disaster has occurred on Christmas Day, as is normally the case, depressingly. Miracle. He laughed at it, did he? Miracle on 34th Street, which is that Richard Attenborough thing, isn't it? Where he
never been into that. That's where AEW / ROH getting the names out of this show. It's that one that I've got no nostalgia for that at all. There's loads of I love Christmas films. I love Thanksgiving films. It's not on my list, unfortunately. Prime time as well. Wild.
But that follow then by whatever the piano at Christmas is. I'm assuming not the Jane Campion film starring Harvey Keitel and Holly Hunter from back in the day, because that was fucking boring. But that's anyway on an hour and 15 minutes before what has to be said is a sneakily good main event slot here. Raiders of the Lost Ark, just going fuck it, we'll stick an Indiana Jones at 8:20. That's a cracking choice. If you're going for that alternative market of we just put on and just trust me, if you sat down and watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, you just watch it the whole way through, you'd be perfectly fine doing it. They follow that with Last Crusade. That would also be an awesome shout to have on there as well. But instead, afterwards, they've got Notting Hill, which is all right, I think, as far as Richard Curtis films go. It's not the worst.
Fall asleep in front of the telly on. That's the one that comes out. What's the Peep Show quote? Then charades, then the lull. What is it? Then the Low Countries, then the cold cuts, then the row. That's pretty much the order of it. Bang into a blockbuster to see your own. I don't know if Notting Hill's counts as that, but
if you could start off with kicking off at your mum, just going, no fucking turkey, mum, no fucking turkey. Doing that would also be awesome.
Beggars can't be choosers. I'm getting a free Christmas lunch, so I'll take what I'm given, but I'll hope it's
If you mix and match those three, it's a good day of telly for the most part.
Channel hop, the Americans don't know how to do that. Oh, actually, they do that too much is the problem. They just get confused. Where's the channels gone? 1, 3, and 4. So it's the one day. It is the one day a year I will actually watch a television as this broadcast, JP. So come after me, licensed people, on Christmas Day.
Got the old Yank sports on though, haven't you? You've got an NFL double game day thing on Netflix, which will probably have, to ring it around to wrestling, a shit ton of stuff about Raw. Loads of stuff about Raw.
They'll be hammering.
So I'd expect some of them, not going to be at home for Christmas. Why? You're going to be watching this NFL game instead. Like Roman Reigns in the studio or whatever. Like, They'll probably love it, in fairness.
One up our Cody. Yeah, I'm sure Matty will love that. But there we go. There's your Christmas preview on top of the wrestling preview. Whatever you're doing out there, have a great one. We will be on again before Christmas, but it will be the grappies and the crappies. So we won't have such time for such festivities as current wrestling, because we'll be 6 hours through that on Sunday night. But yeah, whatever you're doing Christmas Day, have a great one. And whatever you're doing this weekend as well, catching up with friends or whatever else, enjoy. What's Charlie going to be doing, JP?
Charlie's probably going to be playing with cardboard boxes and not the actual toys that he's got. But then this is the final year. I can say it because he doesn't quite understand all of this stuff. This is the year you can get away with buying him relatively cheapy stuff. So you don't really get the whole Santa thing. He's seen two Santas, tries to attack one, the other one he treated with glorious indifference. Yeah, you did last Saturday. So he's got some other stuff into the mix,
Fight more Santas. Miracle on 34th Street will come on, and it might trigger him to go after the telly. We'll see.
ECW Miracle on 34th Street. That's what he does. That's the stuff he loves.
Well, obviously, I'll catch you on Sunday, but hope you have a great one. Hope everybody out there has a great one as well. But yeah, we'll be obviously scheduling, be a little bit all over the place over the next couple of weeks, which I think most podcasts will be. Like I say, we will be doing the grappies and the crappies on Sunday. We will definitely be doing Ask Grapple next Friday. Outside of that, I don't know. We'll find somewhere to review World's End. It might be live, might not be live. We'll do our best, and then hopefully be something resembling normal going into Wrestle Kingdom weekend. We'll try and get I'll be in Belfast for the week or so over New Year, but should be able to get a weekend show in there, or at least very much get a preview in there, and then back to Wrestle Kingdom, Wrestle Dream, and then Raw on Netflix. So it'll all be normal again by the first couple of weeks in January. But there we go. What's better at Christmas time than watching wrestling, JP? We've got lots to do, lots of homework, but everyone enjoy. Thank you, patrons, and thank you, live patrons, and Kings of the Mountain, who finally got into to watch us live. Special thanks to those Kings of the Mountain: Conor Rothland, Eddie Sideburns, Chris Platt, and Carl Gack. And we will catch you again on the Grappies on Sunday night. Good night, all.
Ho, ho, ho. Lapland. Isn't it, mate? No, no part of it. Bye-bye.
Good night, all. Good night, Charlie.
You wave good.